Chapter 1072. He almost couldn't control himself. He couldn't wait to take her directly and mercilessly take off all the clothes on her body. Then he entered her fiercely and wildly, wantonly admiring the rosy red on her face. He didn't know why, but he suddenly remembered that night 7 years ago. It was a carefree and unrestrained night. His ears seemed to vaguely echo with her heavy breathing and that sexy and coquettish moan. It had to be said that her voice was extremely beautiful, especially on the bed. That voice almost turned him into a beast and swallowed her alive. This kiss was even more uncontrollable. The man's tall body pressed down on her body. Coupled with such a deep and passionate kiss, she suddenly woke up from her dream. Yun Shirshir opened her eyes in a daze and felt the slightly heavy weight on her body. After a moment of confusion, she seemed to be a little confused from sleep and couldn't figure out where she was. However, when she gradually regained her consciousness, she suddenly opened her eyes. It didn't matter if she didn't open her eyes. The moment she opened her eyes, she saw that handsome face close by and felt that ambiguous and hot breath on her lips. She suddenly reacted. "You're back." Mu Yaja made an N sound and pressed down on her body, but was unwilling to get up. Yun Shirshir coquettishly moved away from him. Wherever his breath passed, the pores on her skin couldn't help but shrink. Her hand subconsciously pushed his shoulders, but suddenly he lazily raised his eyes. Under the shadows, those deep black pupils were endless. His long and narrow eyes were slightly narrowed, and the bottom of his eyes was dyed with a few traces of dark desire. The desire hidden in the depths of his eyes was already indescribable. They were so close to each other that she could feel a slight change in his body. "Mu Yaja, you." Yun Shirshir was embarrassed and angry. This man, how could he be so energetic? "Get up. Get up. You're hurting me," she muttered. Mu Yaja curled his lips and fiercely pushed down the dark desire in his lower abdomen. He kissed the corner of her lips, and only then was he willing to get up. Yun Shirshir suddenly thought of something and asked nervously, "Mu Yaja, will I go to jail?" Mu Yaja cast a sidelong glance at her and poked her head with his slender fingers. "What are you thinking about all day long in that little head of yours?" I'm scared." Mu Yaja glared at her. "You know how to be scared too." He thought that she was not afraid of anything at all. He didn't expect that there would be times when she was scared. Yun Shirshir took a while to react. Sensing the anger in his words, she lowered her head uneasily. However, from his tone, her worries seemed unnecessary. Thus, she brushed away the uneasiness in her heart. However, from the corner of her eye, she saw that Mu Yaja's face was a little fierce. She fidgeted again like a child who had done something wrong. She lowered her head and said, "I was wrong." Mu Yaja harumphed coldly. "What did you do wrong?" Yun Shirshir pouted. "Is that kind of dinner party something you should go to?" "I don't know. How would I know these things?" She didn't know, but he knew the unspoken rules of Vanity Fair very well. In this era of material desires, there was no such thing as a pure transaction in business. Mu Yaja still couldn't help but scold her softly. "You're usually so weird. Why are you being bullied when you're outside?" Usually, in front of him, she couldn't be taken advantage of at all. Chapter 1073. Seeing this, Yun Shirshir also felt a little guilty. She said meekly, "Mu Yaja, I'm sorry." Mu Yaja's hand paused for a moment. He saw her helplessly clutching the blanket like a child who had done something wrong. Her eyes were red, and tears were about to fall. Her little mouth was slightly pursed, and she looked pitiful. If anyone saw this, they would think that he was the one who had bullied her. He narrowed his eyes helplessly and suppressed the nameless anger in his heart. Suddenly he sighed and said, "I don't want your apology." Yun Shirshir was at a loss for words. She did not know what to say. Could it be that he was angry at her? But she did not want to. If she had known that this would happen, she would not have gone. Seeing that she did not speak, Mu Yaja did not want to talk about it. However, when he thought about how she had been bullied outside, he felt angry again. "Don't worry. You won't go to jail. I'll settle this matter. But there won't be a next time." Yun Shirshir sensed the anger in his tone. Tears rolled down her cheeks and dripped onto the back of his hand. It was extremely hot. "You didn't mention my name when you were bullied outside?" He could not help but ask. I did mention your name, but Li Dongliang said. She suddenly cleared her throat and imitated Li Dongliang's contemptuous tone. Mu Yaja? That guy from Dishing Financial Group? Mu Yaja's face turned ashen. Yun Shirshir imitated Li Dongliang's lewd laughter. Ha ha ha. Fine. Even if you're Mu Yaja's woman, I'll treat you as his woman. Then today, I'll have a good taste of Mu Yaja's woman. The man's expression became even more gloomy. He was infuriated by this stupid woman. She repeated Li Dongliang's words with some embellishment. Then, with a very distant look in her eyes, she silently accused her. With tears in her eyes, she said, "It's obviously because you're not intimidating enough." Mu Yaja was stunned. Not enough deterrence? The corners of his eyes twitched. It was only then that Yun Shirshir noticed his gloomy expression. She smiled and said, "All right. I'm just teasing you. Just smile. Don't be so serious. Otherwise, I'll feel guilty." Mu Yaja snorted coldly and took out the insulated box. "Don't film anymore. Stay at home. I'll take care of it." Yun Shirshir was startled, but she shook her head. "No. I want to earn money to support myself and you and Xiao Chen." Mu Yaja said coldly, "What, are you afraid that I can't afford to raise you?" Yun Shirshir pouted and did not speak. Mu Yaja continued, "Don't worry. The Mews are so big. Even if there are 100 of you, we can still afford to raise you. If there are 100 of me, there will have to be 100 Mu Yaja." Mu Yaja was speechless. Yun Shirshir continued, "I'm very greedy. I don't want to fight with 99 other people for you." Mu Yaja suddenly did not know what to say. Yun Shirshir wrapped her arms around his waist and said, "I want to work. I want to work hard to become an outstanding person." Only by becoming an outstanding person would she be able to stand beside him and not be overshadowed. Mu Yaja's thin lips curled up slightly. He understood her stubbornness. Hence, he did not take a hard stance on this matter. "Have some porridge." He placed the pillow behind her back and held the spoon. He scooped a spoonful of porridge and brought it to her lips. Chapter 1074. As if to cooperate, Yun Shirshir's stomach rumbled a little. Well, she didn't eat much at the dinner party yesterday, and after a whole night, she was starving now. However, when she looked down and saw that it was vegetarian porridge, her appetite was halved. "Only porridge? Only porridge. Is there no meat?" Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows. "You can eat me." "She'd better eat porridge." Yun Shirshir opened her mouth and took a sip, but it was scalded and tears almost flowed out. Mu Yaja said, "Slow down." Yun Shirshir swallowed it with difficulty. "Help me blow it." The corners of Mu Yaja's eyes twitched fiercely again. He scooped another mouthful and pouted unnaturally as he forced himself to blow a few mouthfuls. That stiff expression made Yun Shirshir laugh in her heart. She had never seen Mu Yaja look so adorable before. A certain man looked up and asked angrily, "What are you laughing at?" His voice was cold. Yun Shirshir then realized that the corners of her mouth were curled up too much. She quickly stopped smiling and said seriously, "I just think that you're cute." Mu Yaja ignored her and continued to feed her. He scooped up a mouthful and carefully blew it for her to cool it down. After 3 times, his actions became much more natural. Just like that, he fed her a mouthful, and she drank a mouthful. The room was silent for a moment, and there was only the sound of porridge slurping. Looking at him, Yun Shirshir's heart felt warm. This should be the feeling of happiness, right? This man, with his noble status, must have grown up in luxury and was served like a crown prince. He should have never done this for anyone before, right? Now he was so considerate. For a moment, Yun Shirshir was really at a loss. "Who cooked this porridge?" she suddenly asked. Mu Yaja frowned and said heartlessly, "I cooked it. Is it good?" "It doesn't taste good," Yun Shirshir commented honestly. Mu Yaja immediately passed the buck. "Yes. Actually, it's you who cooked it. It's not up to standard." As soon as he said that, Yun Shirshir's face darkened. Yu, who had walked to the door, suddenly sneezed gracefully. He opened the door and saw Mu Yaja holding a thermos bowl and feeding Yun Shirshir porridge. He smiled with satisfaction. This is what a man should be like. Yu's conditions for daddy were that he had to be gentle, considerate, powerful, and rich. He had to be a slave to his wife and put Mommy first in everything. Not bad. Daddy was slowly moving closer to the ideal of a good husband. Mommy. Yu and Xiao Yichen happily pounced on the bed. The two little guys were so noisy that the porridge bowl in Mu Yaja's hands almost toppled over. Mu Yaja was about to flare up when he saw the two little guys hanging onto Yun Shusher's arm like koalas. Their little faces were rubbing against Yun Shusher's chest. Their expressions, and actions were in perfect sync. Mu Yaja was suddenly speechless. Mommy. Why didn't you come home last night? Why didn't you tell Yu? You made Yu so worried. Yu raised his head. Halfway through his words, he suddenly noticed something. His clear eyes stared fixedly at her face. Yun Shusher noticed that he was staring at her without blinking. She touched her face in confusion. She didn't feel anything strange. Chapter 1075. Mommy, why are your eyes so swollen? Yu narrowed his eyes. He was very observant. Yun Shusher's heart skipped a beat. She had cried so hard last night that she slept the whole day. Her eyes were so swollen that they resembled walnuts. Yu, of course, did not know what had happened last night. He only narrowed his eyes suspiciously and turned to shoot a cold glare at Mu Yaja. Mommy, did Daddy bully you again? Mu Yaja was stunned. He was wronged. Yun Shusher chuckled. She did not know whether to nod or shake her head. Mu Yaja glared at her. Why was this woman not defending him? Yu was angry. He crossed his arms and glared coldly at Mu Yaja. Mommy, did Daddy bully you? Tell me. If he bullied you, I won't let him off. Yun Shusher was amused by his serious look. How do you intend to not let him off? Yu did not say a word, but he gave a sinister smile. His deep eyes hid many flashes of sinister laughter. He was extremely two-faced. Mu Yaja's shoulders trembled. Why was his son so two-faced? He suddenly thought of Lu Jingtian's incident. He did not need to think about it to know who was behind it. Initially, he suspected that it was Yu's doing, so he went to find the little lad and asked him about it. Yu admitted it frankly. Mu Yaja immediately realized that his son was more ruthless than him. He was still so young, yet he already had such a ruthless iron fist. What would happen when he grew up? What did Yu say? I don't care what others think of me. Anyway, I won't let anyone who bullies Mommy off. As she said this, Yu's eyes were especially clear. However, the smile in her eyes revealed a sense of arrogance. I have so much just to protect the people I love. If I can't even do this, then no matter how much I have, what's the point? If I can't even protect the person I love, then what's the point of having so much? Mu Yaja was deeply shocked by these words. His son turned out to be a mommy's boy. He was also his #1 love rival. Mu Yaja suddenly felt tired. Yun Shusher was amused and held back her laughter. Yu, your daddy didn't bully me. Mommy didn't sleep well and her eyes are swollen. Humph. Liar. Yu was not someone who could be brushed off with just a few words. Mommy's eyes are so swollen. It's obvious that she cried. Yun Shusher fell silent. Baby, do you have to be so observant? Tell me, did Daddy bully Mommy? Yu asked again. Yun Shusher fell silent. No. Yu shot Mu Yaja another glare. Mu Yaja felt that he was unjustly implicated. Yun Shusher looked at the silent confrontation between father and son. She did not know whether to laugh or cry. All right. It's so late. Stop fooling around. Let's go to bed. At night, Mu Yaja sat in the study. Minyu sent him 2 secretly taken photos. One of them was a photo of Yun Shusher being dragged out of the hotel by Li Dongliang. Even though they knew what was going on, just by looking at the photo, which was secretly taken from this angle, the two of them seemed to be pulling at each other, entangling each other. The photo clearly captured Yun Shusher's facial features. However, because of the angle in the photo taken, the two of them looked ambiguous and entangled. Chapter 1076. These 2 photos were secretly taken by the paparazzi. It was said that the paparazzi originally wanted to upload these 2 photos online. Without a doubt, if these 2 photos were uploaded online, it would definitely cause an uproar. Yun Shusher accompanied her to dinner and used the unspoken rules to get a role. Whether it was true or not, A scandal about the unspoken rules would cause immeasurable damage to an artist, especially in terms of popularity. Take Tang Yu for example. After the unspoken rules were exposed, she was banned by Huan Yu and her contract was terminated. Her popularity hit rock bottom, and all her endorsements were cancelled. She even had to pay a huge penalty for breaching her contract. Now, she could only take on some web dramas to maintain her pitiful exposure. There was even a rumor about her not long ago. Although that was Tang Yu's last-ditch attempt to hype herself up, her life was indeed not easy after the unspoken rules were exposed. She had to pay a huge penalty for breaching her contract. Because of the series of negative news after the unspoken rules were exposed, all the advertisers asked for a penalty for breaching their contracts. Now, she was heavily in debt. She even had to put down her pride and status some time ago and negotiate a contract with a Hong Kong crew for a pornographic film. What kind of situation was she in? She even accepted a pornographic film. It seemed that Tang Yu was living a miserable life. Moreover, a new starlet like Yun Shishir couldn't be tainted at all. If she was involved in scandals like the unspoken rules when her career was on the rise, it would definitely have a huge impact. If these two photos were uploaded online, Chungguang Entertainment would definitely take advantage of this loophole and use the popularity of Yun Shishir to stir up public opinion and create rumors that Yun Shishir stole Lin Ji's role through the unspoken rules. Yun Shishir's popularity was on the rise now. She had a lot of film offers, and many advertising companies targeted her pure aura and proposed to work with her. Qin Zhou had just accepted 3 cosmetics endorsements for her. They were all international luxury brands. Qin Zhou had even negotiated a 7-figure endorsement deal for her. For a newcomer who had just debuted, this was an astronomical sum. It was very impressive, and many people were jealous. There was a lot of trouble when one was popular. After the incident, Huan Yu sent people to investigate all the people who had attended the dinner that day. All the photos of Yun Shishir were deleted from their phones. However, there were still fish that escaped the net. The reporter was just about to upload the photos he had secretly taken online. Fortunately, the website he had uploaded them to was Huan Yu's #1 media portal. Therefore, the photos he had uploaded were stopped by the website's technical department during the review stage. When Min Yu heard the news, he contacted the reporter and offered a high price for the photos. Strangely, the reporter refused to sell it. Min Yu couldn't help but feel suspicious. The price he quoted wasn't low, but the reporter refused to budge. Could it be that these photos were taken by someone behind the scenes? But if he refused to sell, did Min Yu have no other choice? Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit. Soon, he was to be detained for 24 hours. During this period, Min Yu used some tricks to get him to submit. He handed over the negatives and signed the agreement. Only then did Min Yu let him go. As soon as the reporter was released, he called his financial backer and said that Huan Yu had sent people to confiscate his camera and negatives. Chapter 1077. The reporter felt very aggrieved. He had received a hefty reward, but she had also taken the photos, had she not? Huan Yu had offered a high price to buy them out. The price was even several times higher than the reward given to him by his sugar daddy. It was already very generous of him not to sell them. As for the photos and negatives being confiscated, that was something he could not do anything about. Huan Yu was supporting Yun Shishir, and they would eliminate any public opinion that was slightly unfavorable to her. He had suffered a lot in the police station and could not take it anymore, so he gave in. The sugar daddy could not take it anymore. This was a classic case of losing the bait and losing the bait. He hung up the phone angrily. However, this was all for another day. Mu Yaja looked at the 2 photos and pondered for a moment. To be safe, he ordered Min Yu to destroy both photos and negatives to prevent them from leaking out. Min Yu immediately did as he was told. Boss, Li Dongliang will be discharged the day after tomorrow. What do you plan to do? Keep a close eye on him. Okay. On the other end, Song residence. When Song Enya learned that the photos had been confiscated by Huan Yu, she threw her phone to the ground in exasperation and sat on the sofa with a furious expression. Song Yunqi, who was beside her, saw her exasperated look and could not help but tease. What's wrong? Who made my precious sister angry again? Who else could it be? Is it that Yun Shishir again? Song Yunqi's expression changed and suddenly sank. Song Enya snorted and did not comment. Song Yunqi pondered for a moment, but this time, He did not stand on her side blindly. Instead, he said lightly, "Is it because of Uncle Moo again? Enya, I don't want to nag you, but you should give up on him." "Why?" "Brother, why are you siding with an outsider? Why are you speaking up for an outsider?" Song Enya stood up agitatedly and glared at him angrily. Song Yunshi said disapprovingly, "I just want you to give up on Uncle Moo. I have no intention of helping an outsider. Besides, you're my sister. I can't wait to dote on you. How can I bear to let you be bullied?" "Brother," Song Enya said unhappily, "that Yun Shusher is so annoying. If I can, I really want to make her disappear from this world completely." Shh. Song Yunshi was shocked. She immediately covered her mouth and glared at her. "Are you crazy? How could such words be spoken so carelessly? Mom and Dad are here. If they hear you, you'll be in big trouble." "That's the truth." Song Enya refused to admit it. "Who asked her to be so shameless as to snatch Brother Moo from me? You only talk about Brother Moo all day long. I don't know what's so good about him that you miss him so much." Song Yunshi's words sounded sour. Song Enya gloomily replied, "Brother, do you know? This Yun Shusher was really despicable. Huan Yu was so supportive of her, yet she still shamelessly went to a dinner party. Wasn't this the unspoken rule? The paparazzi secretly took photos of her and her dinner party, but they were confiscated by Huan Yu. Yun Shusher is just a small artiste. Why does Brother Moo spoil her so much? She even had a meal with a big boss. It's obvious that she's betraying Brother Moo. Doesn't he care?" Song Yunshi raised an eyebrow. "Things may not be what you see." "Then what is it?" Song Enya sneered. "There's a saying that goes, what you hear is false, but seeing is believing. The photos were clearly taken. Does this Yun Shusher still want to deny it?" Chapter 1078. She had hired the paparazzi to secretly take photos of Yun Shusher. Originally, she wanted to catch some of her scandals and release them to the public. It would be best if Brother Moo could see this woman's dirty face clearly. However, when she finally got her hands on the photos, Huan Yu actually deleted them. It was even possible that Brother Moo had secretly instructed them to do so. How could she not be angry? She was simply about to die from anger. No, she was about to go crazy from anger. Just as Song Enya was about to go crazy, Song Yunshi said lightly from the side, "Stop clinging on to Yun Shusher." "What?" Song Enya suspected that she had heard wrongly. Was her brother speaking up for Yun Shusher? "Actually, to put it bluntly, you're just indignant. Enya, it's not that I want to nag at you, but stop pestering Uncle Moo. It's impossible for you and him to be together." Song Yunshi looked at her calmly and said this. "Why?" Song Enya almost screamed out loud. "Because," Song Enya suddenly said fiercely, "don't say any nonsense that refutes ethics." "I'm not listening." Song Yunshi was stunned. This sister of his did not have any other shortcomings, but she was especially stubborn. She would never listen to others. However, she heard Song Enya say disdainfully, "Why is it impossible for Brother Moo and me? Aren't we just cousins? What's wrong with that? Foreign laws allow cousins to marry. Only the older generation in the country thinks that this is incest." Song Yunshi said disapprovingly, "Whether they're cousins or not isn't the point at all. The point is that he doesn't have you in his heart. I think Uncle Moo is quite concerned about Yun Shusher." Song Enya sneered fiercely. "Humph. At the end of the day, it's clearly that vixen who shamelessly seduced Brother Moo. Does she really think that Brother Moo likes her? It's just a game. She's so stupid to really think that she can become young Madam Moo." Song Yunshi, however, said coldly, "I think Uncle Moo is quite concerned about her." You're deliberately opposing me, aren't you? If Brother Moo really likes that woman, why would he let her pursue a career in showbiz? The entertainment industry was so dirty. How many people were clean? If she was really his beloved woman, he wouldn't have let her develop in the entertainment industry. What's more, Brother Moo's misophobia is so serious that he won't allow his woman to do such a despicable thing as accompanying people to dinner. Song Yunshi looked at her with love and helplessness in her eyes. "My good sister, there are all kinds of good men in the world. Why do you have to revolve around a man? The outside world is so big, maybe you'll meet someone better." "I can't meet him anymore," she said dejectedly. Song Yunshi was shocked and looked at her in a daze. At the mention of Mu Yaja, the corners of Song Enya's lips curled into an incomparably gentle smile. She was no longer as harsh as before. Her entire heart softened, and her beautiful face seemed to glow with a breathtaking radiance. Brother Mu is so outstanding. I'll never meet a man who's more outstanding than him. In fact, what she was unwilling to admit was that perhaps Mu Yaja was sincere about Yun Shirshir. This was because, ever since that incident last time, Mu Yaja had ordered her to apologize to Yun Shirshir. However, given Song Enya's character, how could she be willing to do so? Hence, she did not listen to him at all. Chapter 1079. Song Enya was on the verge of breaking down. There were even a few times when she personally went to the entrance of the CEO's office in Dishing Building to block him. When he opened the door and saw her, he treated her like air and walked around her without even looking at her. She chased after him, but Mu Yaja entered the elevator as if there was no one there, closed the door, and left her standing there. Song Enya was desperate and embarrassed. Did she really have to apologize to Yun Shirshir personally before he would forgive her? Would he only talk to her? How could he be so cruel? How could he force her to such a state for a woman? She had been with him for more than 10 years. What was Yun Shirshir to him? Could it be that her many years of relationship with Brother Mu could not compare to Yun Shirshir? Was Brother Mu willing to use all means to protect Yun Shirshir? It would be hypocritical to say that she was not jealous. In fact, Song Enya was so jealous of Yun Shirshir that she could die. At the thought of how the man, whom she could only dream of, doted on her so much, her heart burned with jealousy. It was extremely unbearable. Song Enya said, Yun Shirshir isn't sincere to Brother Mu. She's with Brother Mu only because she has her eyes on his net worth of billions. Brother Mu, think about it. Brother Mu is the only heir of the Mu group. In the future, he'll be the head of the Mu family. Just based on this point alone, many women would flock to Brother Mu. Is that so? Song Yunshi expressed some doubts. In fact, although he did not know much about Yun Shirshir, he had met her once before. When he saw Yun Shirshir, her eyes were extremely clear. His eyes were very clear, without any impurities. He was probably a very pure person. In fact, if not for the entanglement between Song Enya and this woman, if he and Yun Shirshir were to get to know each other again, perhaps he would not hate this woman. Moreover, he had thought it through carefully after the incident. Given Song Enya's arrogant and unruly character, perhaps she had provoked Yun Shirshir first. His niece had been spoiled since she was a child, so he knew her best. She liked to kick up a fuss without reason. Perhaps, she was the one who bullied Yun Shirshir first. Of course, he could only keep this thought to himself. After all, Song Enya was his younger sister. He could not help anyone but her. The next day, Yun Shirshir was caught as soon as she arrived at the company. Qin Zhou angrily dragged her into the office. As soon as he closed the door, he went straight to the point and asked her, I heard that something happened to you the day before yesterday? Yun Shirshir was taken aback by his question, which came out of nowhere. She was truly baffled by it. Did Kong Xiaoqian invite you to dinner the day before yesterday? Qin Zhou asked in detail. Yun Shirshir was startled, then she nodded and said, Yes. You went? Yes. Why are you so obedient? You just go when I tell you to? Are you stupid? Qin Zhou was furious as he tapped her head. You usually refuse to serve me a cup of tea. When someone dug a trap for you to jump into, you really jumped into it obediently. Yun Shirshir, you usually look smart, but at the critical moment, your IQ has been fed to the dogs. Yun Shirshir looked bitter. I didn't know that it was a Hongmen banquet. You didn't know? Haven't you heard of Li Dongliang's reputation in the industry? He has ruined many female celebrities. If you're any dumber, you'll be next. Qin Zhou was furious. Chapter 1080. Yun Shirshir was stunned and said, Kong Xiaoqian only told me to meet an investor. She didn't say who it was. Also, I don't know what Li Dongliang's reputation is. Qin Zhou was speechless. Didn't I tell you that this industry is very messy? Also, without my order, you went to dinner without my permission. Didn't you think about the consequences? Yun Shirshir knew that she was in the wrong. She was stupid and accepted the lecture obediently. Seeing her pitiful look, Qin Zhou's heart softened. He couldn't help but touch her hair. All right, I didn't mean to scold you. I was just worried that you would get hurt. You're so stupid. I'm really worried that you'll be eaten alive if I let you out. So exaggerated? That's because you haven't seen anything more exaggerated. Anyway, in the future, don't act on your own without my order. Qin paused and suddenly smiled. But you're really good. You stabbed him with a pair of scissors. I heard that if you were a little more biased, Li Dongliang would have no descendants. Yun Shesher stuck out her tongue. Who asked him to offend me? Serves him right. You're still laughing. If Chairman Mu hadn't suppressed this matter, you would have been killed by Li Dongliang. Qin couldn't help but scare her. Yun Shesher was really shocked. He's so powerful? What do you think? Do you know who's backing worldwide? What? Dream Fund. Isn't that the charity fund founded by Wu Lianjie? Yun Shesher was a little confused. Charity fund? That's because you don't know. This Dream Fund is just a financial institution that launders money in the name of charity. There are many big shots behind the Dream Fund, both in the government and in the underworld. Wu Lianjie is just the spokesperson. The big shots behind him are the real masters. On the surface, the Dream Fund is a charity organization. But behind the scenes, there are many underworld and legal forces fighting and killing. It involves the interests of many top tycoons. Of course, these can't be said out loud. Yun Shesher was dumbfounded by what she heard. So, why do you think those investors invested in the movie when they knew that they would lose all their money? To put it bluntly, it was just a way to launder money. It's nothing more than washing black into white, Qin added. Yun Shesher was completely speechless. It turned out that there were so many benefits involved. Be careful. This circle isn't as simple as you think. Dreams are just dreams, but reality is cruel. Yun Shesher asked nervously, what happened next? Not much. No matter how unreasonable Li Dongliang is, he still has to give face to Chairman Mu. That's why the matter has been suppressed. Li Dongliang didn't want to pursue this matter any further. This didn't mean that Mu Yaja would give up just like that. After this incident, Kong Xiaoqian was fired from her position at Huanyu. Dishing was also following up on the acquisition of the Kong Consortium. It could be said that Kong Xiaoqian had tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. She had paid a terrible price. Because she had touched someone she shouldn't have. Of course, you're lucky to have profited from a disaster. Who knows, maybe the female lead role of Lin Ji will fall on your shoulders. Yun Shesher raised her eyebrows. You mean the female lead of Lethal Beauty? I'll fight for it with you. Who knows, there might be a chance. Qin looked very excited. However, Yun Shesher suddenly poured cold water on him. Forget it. Since Lin Ji has already been decided internally, there's no need to fight for anything. Chapter 1081. Why? Are you stupid? I'm giving you this role for free. Don't you want it? No, I don't want it. I want to play the second female lead. I've read the script carefully. Qin Changle is a tragic character. It's quite interesting. It should be a good role to hone my acting skills. Qin rolled his eyes. Yun Shesher smiled and said frankly, I like challenging roles. Qin did not know whether to laugh or cry. You don't want to play a good role, and you want to play a villain? Do you know that this role is a typical evil supporting female lead? It's not a good role. Are you sure you want to play it? It's rare to find a challenging role. Just let me play it. Yun Shesher winked at him. Qin could not do anything about it. Okay, then I'll go and finalize this with Director Gu in the afternoon. Once it's settled, don't regret it. Thus the matter was settled. That day, Li Dongliang was discharged from the hospital. He had been living in fear for the past few days in the hospital. He was constantly worried that he had offended young Master Mu. He did not know what would happen next. Although he had some power behind him, they were all connected by interests. No one would risk offending Dishing Financial Group for him. Just as he was so scared, he received a chilling invitation the moment he was discharged from the hospital. It was said that Mu Yaja had set up a banquet at Yongya Private Clubhouse to treat him, saying that he wanted to apologize to him. Apologize? Did he hear it wrong? He had almost slept with his woman, and now he wanted to apologize to him. It must be the other way around. However, Mu Yaja's men said that Li Dongliang had been hurt so badly that he should do something. Although it felt strange, Li Dongliang did not dare to refuse the invitation. How would he dare to refuse Mu Yaja? Thus, he hurried to the banquet. As soon as he arrived at the private room, he found that the original cast who had attended the banquet that day were all there. A few of them were famous producers, and a few were investors. Even Sun Hua was there. Li Dongliang looked around and felt that this banquet was not as simple as it seemed. Was it a Hongmen banquet? With this suspicion, he turned around and wanted to retreat. Just as she turned around and lifted her leg, she bumped into Mu Yaja, who had just entered the room. When Mu Yaja walked in and his tall figure appeared in the room, the large living room suddenly became extremely narrow. He was tall and straight. When he stood next to Li Dongliang, the difference in height was obvious. He was wearing a dark red shirt today, which made his handsome face look even more seductive. Although the word bewitching didn't seem to be appropriate when used on a man. However, it was especially appropriate to use it on Mu Yaja. Ordinary people wearing clothes of this color would look very tacky. However, on his body it was very elegant. Especially on his handsome face, it was white and charming. Li Dongliang looked at him in a daze. This was his first time meeting such a distinguished person like Mu Yaja. When he thought about what had happened a few days ago, he felt an inexplicable sigh in his heart. When Mu Yaja saw him, a sly smile appeared on his cold face. His good-looking eyebrows raised slightly. What's wrong? You're leaving? Mu. Chairman Mu. You're here. I was wondering if I should go to the door to welcome you. Li Dongliang explained, breaking out in cold sweat. Mu Yaja smiled coldly. Haha, there's no need. You're injured. Sit down first. Chapter 1082. Minyu, who was standing next to Mu Yaja, could not help but snicker. Minyu's eyes lit up at the thought of the upcoming show. He was a little excited. Mu Yaja glanced at him coldly from the corner of his eyes. Minyu immediately calmed himself down and returned to his expressionless face. As Mu Yaja sat down at the table, everyone looked at each other. They felt that the atmosphere was particularly solemn, and they were very cautious. In the past, when the show started, there would be all kinds of chatter. However, now that Mu Yaja was there, these people were unbelievably quiet. No one dared to be the first to speak. Mu Yaja ordered a bottle of Chateau Lafite. He looked around and a devilish smile appeared on his handsome face. Why aren't you talking? Young Master Mu, why are you suddenly hosting a banquet today? An investor at the side asked carefully. I invited all of you to come and play a game. Mu Yaja's words were concise, but his thin lips were faintly revealed in a hair-raising arc. It was a half-smile. The weather was still a little hot. However, when he smiled, the temperature in the room suddenly dropped to the freezing point. It was as if Rome was frozen. It was really chilling. Play a game? Everyone was confused. They looked at each other, but they could not figure out what Mu Yaja was thinking. It was unfathomable. Li Dongliang was the first to speak. It's rare that young Master Mu is in the mood. Since young Master Mu wants to play a game, I'm looking forward to it. What kind of interesting game has gathered all of us here? Young Master Mu, as long as you say the word, we'll risk our lives to accompany you. Ha! Mu Yaja sneered. A cold light flashed in his eyes. I'm sure everyone will like the program that I've arranged. His smile was like a gust of cold wind blowing past. Everyone was shivering from the cold. Some people were really not suited to smile. Especially Mu Yaja. It had to be known that his face was usually cold and unsmiling. But now when he smiled, it was cold and threatening. Although there was a sense of asceticism in it, when it fell into the eyes of the guilty crowd, they felt that there was something sinister about this smile. Cold man. At first, when they received the invitation, everyone was worried. They felt that something bad was going to happen. Sun Hua, in particular, felt extremely guilty. Logically speaking, a small fry like him shouldn't be invited by Mu Yaja personally. Looking at it now, he had a feeling that they were not here with good intentions. They had also heard that Yun Shirshir was Mu Yaja's woman. Could it be that this was really a trap? Was Mu Yaja planning to get back at her? The waiter opened the bottle of wine and poured wine for everyone. Mu Yaja raised the wine glass in his hand. Everyone immediately stood up in fear and trepidation. One after another, they made a toast and downed the dry red wine in the glass in one gulp. Li Dongliang looked at Mu Yaja's expression and fidgeted uneasily. After a long period of silence at the banquet, he suddenly felt a little uneasy. "Young Master Mu, what program did you prepare? What's the hurry?" Mu Yaja glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. Then he clapped his hands lightly. Soon, a group of people in black suits rushed into the private room. At the same time, they locked the door of the private room. The huge private room seemed to have become a cage that was hard to escape from. Mu Yaja suddenly stood up slowly. He walked to Li Dongliang's side and bent down slightly. Chapter 1083. I heard that Mr. Li likes to play with women? Li Dongliang opened his mouth as beads of cold sweat rolled down his forehead. Haha. You must be joking, Mr. Mu. Men like to have some fun. I'm sure Mr. Li will like the next program. Then, he turned around and sat down on the sofa gracefully. He crossed his legs and rested his chin on one hand. His expression returned to its usual coldness. A terrifying aura was emitted from his body. It was a dark, gloomy, and cold aura that filled every corner of the room. It was chilling. Tonight, I've arranged a special program for Mr. Li and Mr. Sunday then. He glanced at Minyu coldly. Minyu took the hint and raised his head to signal him with a glance. A few men in black immediately stepped forward and surrounded Li Dongliang and Sun Hua. Li Dongliang knew that things were not going well. This was indeed a trap. Mu Yaja had called him here to prank him. Hence, he stood up nervously and looked at Mu Yaja. Mr. Mu, is there a misunderstanding between us? Misunderstanding? Mu Yaja raised his eyebrows as if he did not understand. It must be. It must be because of that Yun Shirshir. Li Dongliang quickly begged for mercy. Master Mu. She's just a woman. If you like her, I'll send you a few prettier ones next time. Why do you have to hurt our relationship because of a woman? The more he spoke, the colder Mu Yaja's expression became. He did not dare to continue. Mr. Li, you must be joking. I don't mean anything else. Since you like to play, I'll let you have your fun tonight. Like to play with women? Then, he did not mind letting him have a taste of being gang-raped. As soon as he finished speaking, the men in black tied up Li Dongliang and Sun Hua's hands and feet. Then, the two men were handcuffed and hung on the wall with their feet in the air. Li Dongliang and Sun Hua's faces turned pale. They had no idea what was going on. Hanging from the wall, the handcuffs tightened around his wrists. It was so painful that he felt like his joints were about to dislocate. This was especially true for Sun Hua. His body was fat, and he was at a disadvantage. Hanging like this, his feet left the ground, and he cried out in pain. Chairman Mu! Chairman Mu! What do you mean? What are they planning to do? The man in black behind them pulled down their pants with a swoosh. With his white buttocks exposed to the air, Li Dongliang was extremely embarrassed. He did not know what Mu Yaja was trying to do to make them like this. Chairman Mu, what do you mean? If I've done anything wrong, you can just point it out. You don't have to do this to us, right? Li Dongliang and Sun Hua were in a sorry state after their pants were taken off. Everyone wanted to laugh, but because Mu Yaja was present, they had no choice but to hold back their laughter. Did young Master Mu invite them over just to watch the show? Mu Yaja said coldly, Don't you like to play with women? Today, I'll let you have a taste of being played. What do you think? As soon as he finished speaking, Li Dongliang's face twisted. What did he mean? What did he mean by letting him have a taste of being played? Chapter 1084. The faces of the people at the table gradually turned red, and a wave of heat rose from their lower abdomens. Then, they felt extremely restless. They had been playing very fiercely in private, so they did not immediately realize that the wine glass had probably been drugged. They had all been drugged. However, Li Dongliang and Sun Hua did not seem to have been drugged. Moreover, after they sat at the table, they did not touch anything other than the wine. The wine was also opened, so there should not be any problems. Could it be that the wine glass had been drugged in advance? Everyone scratched their ears and cheeks, and the heat in their bodies gradually eroded their rationality. Mu Yaja smiled coldly. Minyu finally could not hold it in anymore. Boss, this is a little too much for your taste. This was clearly to make Li Dongliang and Sun Hua suffer a fate worse than death. The group of people stood up uneasily and wanted to escape. However, as soon as they reached the door, they were kicked back by the men in black who surrounded the door. An investor came over on his knees and begged for mercy. "Young Master Mu, what game are you trying to play? Ouch! Spare me! Spare me, please! This matter has nothing to do with me." "It has something to do with you." Mu Yaja raised his handsome eyebrows slightly and leaned back slightly, his kingly aura suddenly appearing. "Then, young Master Mu, what are you trying to do?" "Play," Mu Yaja said curtly. At the side, Minyu said, "You guys, take turns with them." As soon as he said that, the men sitting at the table were all stunned. What did this mean? Did Mu Yaja mean to take turns with Li Dongliang and Sun Hua? But if it was a woman, then so be it. Li Dongliang and Sun Hua were burly old men, and they did not have such heavy tastes. One of the producers cried bitterly, "Young Master Mu, you can't do this. Even if you want to take turns, you should at least give us a few women, right? We can't get hard with men." "That's why I gave you a little boost," Minyu said with a sly smile. Everyone was stunned. When they looked at Li Dongliang and Sun Hua who were hanging, they almost vomited. Minyu snickered. The boss really had a bad sense of humor. He could even think of such a method. Master Mu, please let me go. I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. Please don't torture me like this." Li Dongliang cried and begged for mercy. Sun Hua, who was at the side, was being hung up. He was out of breath, and his hand was about to be broken. How could he be in the mood to speak? A producer knelt at Mu Yaja's feet. He had played with many women, but it wasn't as if he had never played with men. But what kind of man was she playing with? If it wasn't a nightclub boy, then it would be a skinny and fair-skinned teenager in the circle. It was too disgusting for him to sleep with old lackeys like Li Dongliang and Sun Hua. He really couldn't do it. Chairman Mu, I'm begging you. Don't torture me like this." Mu Yaja coldly kicked him aside. "I never repeat my words twice. Turn them all over, or else none of them will be able to walk out of this room." As his cold voice fell, the group of people broke out in cold sweat and trembled. Chapter 1085. At this moment, he was actually glad that he had taken drugs. Otherwise, how could he fight against such an old lackey? However, the pitiful thing was that even though he had taken drugs, he immediately wilted when he touched Li Dongliang. The corner of Min Yu's mouth twitched. He could not hold it in anymore. This time, these people would be left with quite a bit of psychological trauma. When the producer finally got on the stage, he heard Li Dongliang howl like a pig being slaughtered. It was so loud that his eardrums almost burst. Mu Yaja looked up coldly at the ridiculous scene in front of him. Minyu, on the other hand, tried his best to hold back his laughter. He held his stomach and suffered internal injuries. Groups of people began to enter the battlefield in a grandiose manner. From time to time, Li Dongliang and Sun Hua's painful cries could be heard in the room. Li Dongliang, especially, had just sutured the wound on his waist and abdomen. It had not completely healed yet, so the stitches had not been removed. In the intense movements, the wound tore open. In addition, he was wearing a white shirt tonight, which immediately dyed his shirt red. Ouch! Ouch! King. Ouch! Young Master Mu, have mercy. Please don't. F***ck. The screams in the room rose and fell one after another. The scene was even more exciting. Minyu really wanted to punch the ground. This scene was really exciting. Oh my god, there was such a way to play. Poor Li Dongliang. Not only did his wound tear open, but he was also raped by two people in a row. That feeling could only be implied, but could not be described. In any case, Li Dongliang even had the intention to die. Minyu thought to himself that this feeling must be very good. Anyway, only Li Dongliang and Sun Hua could understand this feeling. Mu Yaja was either satisfied or bored. He stood up and was about to leave. Seeing that he was about to leave, Li Dongliang panicked and begged in a hoarse voice. Young Master Mu, have mercy. I can't play like this anymore. If this continues, I'll definitely die. Then please go to hell. Mu Yaja said expressionlessly and walked to the door. Li Dongliang panicked. He did not know what was going through his mind, but he did not care about anything else as he cursed. Muyaja. Muyaja, you're too ruthless. You're playing with me like this for a woman? Is it worth it? Muyaja stopped in his tracks. He did not turn around, but his cold gaze was directed at him. You're playing with me for a woman? Isn't it enough? If this is a punishment, it should be over? I really can't take it anymore. Can you? Muyaja's eyes narrowed dangerously as flames of fury ignited in them. He suddenly recalled how his woman had been in such a sorry state that day. Her little face was still in shock. Her cheeks were stained with dust, red and swollen, and her eyes were filled with tears. Her entire face was in a sorry state. There were traces of violence all over her body. Her clothes were torn, and there were a few strands of hair on her shoulders. Yet, this man said that a woman was not worth it? He clenched his fists angrily and strode to Li Dongliang. He grabbed him by the collar and cursed coldly. He raised his hand and gave him a hook. Li Dongliang was in so much pain from the punch that he let out a muffled groan. With a cracking sound, his jaw was actually dislocated. Chapter 1086. Amidst the excruciating pain, he finally got a clear look at the handsome man in front of him. That fierce and cold expression, that pair of eyes that were as sharp as swords, almost scared his soul out of his body. Muyaja's expression was as fierce as a dark emperor. He grabbed him and said, Li Dongliang, this is considered a light punishment. You deserve to die. After saying that, he lifted his leg and kicked him in the chest, causing him to fall to the ground. Then, he stepped on his shoulder mercilessly and sneered coldly. How bold are you that you even dare to touch my woman? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. He exerted some force on his foot and Li Dongliang wailed in pain. He cried and begged. Young Master Mu, please have mercy on me. Please have mercy. Muyaja looked down at him from above and snorted coldly. He wanted to kill him, but he was still hoping that he would show him some mercy? What a fool's dream. Li Dongliang looked at that cold and determined expression and felt a chill run down his spine. He couldn't understand why Muyaja would treat him like this for a woman. Young Master Mu, I really didn't know that she was your woman. I didn't get my hands on her, did I? Muyaja bent down calmly. His eyes narrowed as he pulled out a gun from his waist and pressed it against Li Dongliang's forehead. His cold voice was like that of an Azura. Li Dongliang, you make me feel dirty just by looking at you. The pitch-black hole was right between his eyebrows, and the cold texture was so real. The man pulled the safety off coldly. It was like a note of death, pressing on Li Dongliang's heartstrings. Li Dongliang was scared out of his wits. A gun. Oh my God, this man was carrying a gun with him. He didn't have time to think. He was scared out of his wits as he looked at Muyaja fearfully. In the face of death, he tore off all his disguises. This man finally revealed his ugly nature. He pleaded with tears and snot. Young Master Mu, what did I say wrong? Just pretend you didn't hear it. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Don't. He carefully looked at Muyaja's expression, afraid that Muyaja would shoot him if he didn't like it. In extreme shock, he shuddered and lost control of his bladder. Muyaja's lips turned cold as he watched the man's ugly behavior. Just as his finger was about to pull the trigger. Minyu grabbed his hand. Boss, calm down. Muyaja was stunned. Then, he took a deep breath and put the gun away. These were troubled times. It was better to avoid trouble. Muyaja coldly stated, You're not allowed to leave until you're done with your turn tonight. Minyu's lips twitched. Muyaja gave him a sideways glance. Why don't you do it? Of Min. How disgusting. If he was forced to do it with them, he might be traumatized and have erectile dysfunction from fear. And Li. What was left was the official start. As for what happened next, it was needless to say. Anyway, it was very, very tragic. The next day, Li Dongliang was sent to the hospital again. Of course, Sun Hua was with him. Sun Hua was also very miserable. According to the doctor, it was very, very tragic. This was probably the most serious injury to the anus he had seen in his many years of medical practice. Chapter 1087. How was there a word to describe it? He was insane. Anyway, that poor doctor didn't eat that day. He couldn't eat. Disgusting. This incident even made the headlines on a certain media website. 2 men took part in lewd party and were gang raped by more than 10 people. However, this was a story for another day. When Mu Yaja returned home, it was already very late. He walked into the bedroom and glanced at the bed. Yun Shirshir was lying on her side and had already fallen asleep. He walked to the bedside and sat down. He raised his hand and slowly caressed her jade-like face. He lowered his head and kissed her on the lips. At first, he only planned to kiss her lightly, like a dragonfly skimming the water. However, once he touched this soft beauty, it was somewhat difficult to stop. This woman was like a beautiful poppy. Just a light taste and he would fall into this irresistible drug addiction. His lower abdomen tightened. He frowned slightly and looked at her sleeping face. He didn't want to disturb her like this. Hence, he got up and went into the bathroom, intending to take a cold shower. He heard the sound of tiptoeing footsteps. Hearing the sudden sound, Mu Yaja turned around and glanced over. He saw that Yun Shirshir had entered the bathroom and was standing at the door. She slowly leaned against the door and closed it. "You're back." His voice was muffled, weary, and slightly hoarse as if he hadn't woken up yet. Did I wake you up?" Yun Shirshir rubbed her eyes and nodded. She seemed to be complaining that he had made too much noise. "Why are you back so late?" She opened her hazy eyes. Mu Yaja continued what he was doing and took off his clothes. He said lightly, "I had something to do at the company." "Oh." Yun Shirshir leaned against the door. When she saw that he had turned around, she felt a little suffocated. She was standing not far away from him. She could see his slender, strong body at a glance. She thought that, other than his godlike looks, this man still had the capital to charm women. Just that sexy backline alone was enough to make her feel a little helpless and suffocated. She could only watch as the clear water flowed down the sexy lines of his back. Then she looked at his well-defined long arms. Every movement of his was filled with the unique strength and beauty of a man. Especially those slender legs, they were comparable to a model's. The hot mist swept over like a soft veil, shrouding the entire bathroom. Yun Shirshir suddenly took a step forward and walked behind him. His heart beat faster and faster. Gradually, the sound of his heart beating like thunder could be heard in his ears. Bang, bang, bang. In this already stuffy and narrow space, it became increasingly difficult to breathe. She slowly walked behind him. Without making a sound, she raised her arms and wrapped them around his waist. Under the shower head, the warm water drenched her inner garments. Her originally milky white undergarments were drenched by the water and became translucent, tightly clinging to her body. Her exquisite and graceful figure stood out like this. She had just been woken up by his kiss. She could clearly feel that the man's breathing was getting tighter and tighter, but he held it back. She understood that he felt sorry for her and couldn't bear to wake her up. Yun Shirshir tasted a trace of sweetness in her heart from being carefully cared for. Hence, she hugged him even tighter. Chapter 1088. Mu Yaja turned around in a daze and lowered his head, only to see the woman getting closer to him. Her head was leaning on his body and her face was deeply buried in his chest. Her silky hair was already drenched and hung down on her shoulders, making her look even more beautiful. The man's figure was extremely tall and straight while she seemed to only reach his chest. Standing next to him, she seemed to be too delicate. Her entire delicate body softly stuck to his body and her arms wrapped tighter and tighter around him. In the midst of the splashing water, there were warm tears and dense water droplets. She gently kissed his chest. Soft and dense kisses pecked down, lingering on his well-defined chest. And her little hands slowly moved along his back. This kind of unintentional and inexperienced action easily stirred up his extinguished desire again. The man's breathing gradually became tight and heavy. Her initiative was something he was happy to see. Thus, as he thought of this, his deep eyes were once again tainted with a bit of heat. His hands suddenly clasped her shoulders tightly and pushed her lightly, pressing her heavily against the smooth wall. Yun Shirshir raised her head in a daze. That pair of bewitching eyes were slightly dazed at this moment and her eyes were slightly red. Her eyes were the typical peach blossom eyes and her eyelids were suffused with a beautiful pink color. Her amber eyes looked a little misty and even the tip of her nose was a little red. She looked really lovable. The man's extraordinarily handsome face was reflected in her eyes. In the hazy mist, he was as handsome as a god and had a unique charm. He was a natural-born overlord. God had blessed him with a handsome face, a wealthy family background, and amazing innate talent. But time had given him something deeper. The cold porcelain face pressed against her back and pressed against his fiery body. It was like ice and fire at the same time. The world seemed to be spinning and the dizziness became more and more intense. A dry heat floated up to her cheeks and her ears were ringing. Other than the sound of splashing water, she seemed to be unable to hear anything else. Following that, she watched as his handsome face seductively closed in. His gaze was focused and the tip of his nose touched hers. He lowered his head and covered her lips with a fiery kiss. The tip of his tongue hooked in and pried open her lips. The domineering deep kiss greedily sucked in her sweetness and inexperience. It was a night of sexual intercourse. This man's energy was really too strong. He pressed her down 3 times until she weakly collapsed on the pillow. Only then did he end this affair. Although she was asleep, but his arms were still tightly locked in her embrace. Such a possessive action did not allow her to struggle at all. The distance between them was so close and the tip of her nose was lingering with his steady breath. But she was a little unable to sleep. After nearly an entire night of madness, she was exhausted and her physical strength was somewhat overdrawn. But she couldn't sleep. Her eyelids were heavy and her limbs stiff as lead. However, her mind was unusually clear. In her heart, she was inexplicably worried about her gains and losses. One day, happiness suddenly came, but she couldn't help but be afraid. When she opened her eyes again, her world had become her alone again. She slightly turned her body, her back facing the man. When she lowered her head, she could see his muscular arms. Chapter 1089. In her hazy sleepiness, it seemed like someone was rubbing her waist, and it also seemed like someone was kissing her gently. His slightly warm thin lips were gently kissing her lips, but she was so sleepy that she couldn't open her eyes. She could only subconsciously resist. Until she felt the strange feeling breaking into her body, slowly and rhythmically, sprinting step by step, deeply occupying her. And her body subconsciously obeyed and catered to it. Yoon Shirshir furrowed her brows in dissatisfaction and looked up blankly, only to see a silver necklace dangling from his sexy and well-defined collarbones. It was so mesmerizing that it could not be reasoned with. She opened her mouth, wanting to resist, but what escaped from her mouth was a broken moan. When the man saw that she had woken up in a daze, he lowered his head and viciously bit her lips, jaw, and neck. She was half asleep and half awake until they both climbed into the gorgeous clouds. The man panted heavily and pulled away. However, she was so exhausted that she almost fainted. When she opened her eyes again, it was already close to noon. In fact, she had already woken up, but she was so weak that she couldn't even lift her arms. This man was too energetic, wasn't he? She was so tired. But why did he look like nothing had happened? His energy was so strong that it made people jealous. She originally thought that Mu Yaja would leave early in the morning, just like 2 days ago, leaving early and returning late. When she woke up, he was nowhere to be seen. When he returned at night, there was more or less the smell of alcohol on his body. He must have removed it from the table every time he came back. He seemed to be very busy, so busy that it was rare to see him except at night. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he was busy every day, right? Mu Yaja entered the study room early in the morning. By the time he finished dealing with a lot of work in the company, it was already past noon. When he walked into the bedroom, he saw that the little woman was still curled up in bed, motionless. However, his eyesight was very good. When he walked in, his sharp eyes caught the moment when she hurriedly closed her eyes. It seemed that she had already woken up, but was so scared that she was like an ostrich that was curled up and pretending to be asleep. Was she being shy? He walked over and sat down by the bed, looking down at her. As if sensing that he was beside her, the little girl panicked. Her eyelids fluttered, her thick eyelashes trembled, and her eyes rolled around, but she still didn't open her eyes. Mu Yaja couldn't help but chuckle. Was this woman planning to stay in bed forever? He couldn't help but laugh, but his gaze was once again deeply attracted to her. Her hands were gripping the corner of the blanket, covering most of her face, only revealing a pair of eyes. Her black hair was scattered on the pillow, but in the dim light, it did not lose its soft and bright luster. As if she was afraid of attracting his attention, even her breathing was extremely soft, small and weak. Mu Yaja chuckled softly at this. Yun Shusher's heart skipped a beat and even her breathing stopped abruptly. Looking at her slightly unnatural expression, he knew that she was feeling uneasy at the moment. He was more or less harboring a wicked interest in seeing how long she was going to pretend. Or perhaps he really wanted to do that in his heart. Mu Yaja reached out and gently lifted the corner of the blanket. He bent down and kissed her deeply, savoring her fragrance. Chapter 1090. As he kissed her more and more wildly, her whole body slowly stiffened. He was very satisfied with her reaction. He liked her shy response. His teeth teased and nibbled on the tip of her tongue. He swept his tongue across her lips and teeth and went deep into her mouth. He couldn't stop himself from kissing her. At first, he still had a little interest in teasing her, but the deeper the kiss, the more he couldn't control himself, and in an instant, it aroused his desire to go even deeper. Just kissing like this made him unsatisfied, and deep down, he wanted to possess more. In fact, during this period of time, he had been restraining himself from touching her. However, her initiative last night had liberated him for a long period of time, and he couldn't stop. Originally, when he woke up in the morning, he still wanted her. Seeing that she was sleeping soundly, he couldn't bear to disturb her. But now, he couldn't control himself. Uncontrollably, as he kissed her, his large palm reached into the blankets and grabbed her waist. He pulled her body towards him, and the soft touch of her body made his heart tremble. His large hand wandered around her back, following her exquisite curves into the neckline of the bathrobe, and his target was precisely her. Yun Shusher moaned softly, moving unnaturally, and her breathing gradually became faster. This man. Was he trying to kill her? Did he have to be so energetic? Was he planning to swallow her up until not even her bones were left? No matter how strong a person's will was, they couldn't continue pretending. She quickly woke up, but there was some astonishment between her eyebrows. Obviously, she was quite frightened by his inhumanly strong energy. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was a pair of deep phoenix eyes, dark and endless. That breathtaking light, but also faintly revealed a sense of teasing. She narrowed her eyes again, avoiding his playful gaze, and pushed his shoulder in a complaining manner. Her beautiful brows tightly knitted together. This action fell into the man's eyes, but it seemed to have the intention to stop. The rippling light in the corner of his eyes seemed to have been electrified. This woman, she was born to be a seductress. If it was in ancient times, she would probably cause chaos in the court. And he was the incapable ruler who was bewitched by her. What? You're finally willing to wake up? Mu Yaja looked up, pinched her cheeks, and lightly pecked her eyelids a few times. The smile on his lips had a hint of evil. His eyes were full of ridicule, but his large palm was messing around inside her clothes. She quickly grabbed his arm and shook her head. No! Her energy had been squeezed dry, so why was he still so energetic? Yes. He easily denied her and domineeringly pressed his lips against hers once again, lingering charmingly. The tall man's body pressed down on her body, but he was concerned about not hurting her. As for her feelings and resistance, he didn't have the time to care about it. His body, which had been suppressed for so long, was extremely tense and clamoring for her. His large palms forcefully grabbed her thighs and pulled them up. His strong thighs went between her legs and raised her butt. It was the sound of a belt being pulled. Heavens, again? Chapter 1091. Like a drowning person grabbing onto a straw, she reminded him, Your phone is ringing. Mu Yaja's lips twitched as he ignored the incessant ringing of his phone. Don't bother about it. Yun Shusher was startled. He bit her lips hard and said in a deep voice, Now, you just need to look at me. Under the incessant ringing of his phone, he slowly sank into her. He pressed her down and did it a few times without any scruples. Initially, he was still restraining himself, but when the woman under him moaned softly, his movements suddenly became ferocious. On the soft king-sized bed, at this moment, it was his world. He possessed her. Although she was exhausted and did not take the initiative to cater to him like last night, she still knew how to respond to him. In the depths of their passion, she only blindly buried her little face into his neck and endured it. She was simply like a wronged kitten, whining and moaning weakly from time to time. Her hot breath blew into his ears, but it was undoubtedly a form of torture for him. Little did she know that her actions had stimulated a hidden desire in him, almost turning him into a beast of lust and devouring her until not even her bones were left. There was no doubt that in this aspect, Mu Yaja was a man with a lot of energy. Compared to him, her physical strength was really poor. In the end, she was even a little dazed. There were a few times when he wanted to get her on top of him, but her body was too weak. Thus, he had no choice but to press her down and do it a few times, which could be considered to have satisfied him. After doing it once, the man decided to go around her and give up. In the end, Yun Shirshir could not resist the fatigue. Her body was so weak that she fell on the bed and did not want to move. Her eyelids were so heavy that she could not open them. She turned around and quickly fell asleep. In the huge room, it was filled with a unique charming atmosphere after making love. Until his heavy breathing slowly calmed down, he was secretly a little puzzled. When did he become so greedy for women? She lay on her side and unconsciously curled up into a small ball. Her messy black hair was scattered on the pillow, half covering her jade-like cheeks. There was an indescribable charm to her. Mu Yaja lowered his head to look at her. With just a glance, a certain part of him was stirred up again. This woman was really like a demoness in ancient times. She was born with the ability to bewitch people. Even if she lay there without moving, her calm posture was always so bewitching. However, he really could not bear to do it again and again, so he decided to let her go first. He was not in a hurry to devour her. In this aspect, he was not like other men who were eager for sex. Instead, he liked to tease the delicacy until the end and enjoy it. Also, he did not want to frighten her. There was still time. He picked her up horizontally. Her body was so weak that it was beyond words. He secretly cursed. This woman's physical strength was really not able to withstand the torment. After just a few times, her body seemed to have turned into a puddle of spring water. It was as if she had no bones. After they finished, they were sweating quite a bit. Both of their bodies were a little sticky. Thus, he carried her into the bathroom and took a shower together. He helped her clean up. In the meantime, he ordered people to remove the dirty bedsheets. Chapter 1092. In her hazy state, she felt a warm hand gently wiping her body with a towel. And who was it that carried her onto the bed? His long muscular arms wrapped around her waist. The only response she heard was the sonorous and powerful heartbeat. After carrying her to the bed, Mu Yaja changed into a well-ironed suit. He was in high spirits and looked like an elite of the empire. Even though they had sex, he did not show any signs of fatigue. This man had always been very energetic. Just as he was about to leave, he saw the person on the bed open her eyes in a daze. He walked to the bedside and squatted down slightly. His large palm gently caressed her forehead. His thin lips curved as he said in a deep voice, "Wait for me to come back today. Let's have dinner together." His voice was still low and mellow. His palm was still so warm. However, at this moment, Yun Shirshir's consciousness was hazy and she was extremely tired. She could not tell if she was awake or in a dream. Seeing her in a daze, the man could not help but laugh. He leaned over and planted a kiss on her forehead before getting up to leave. After a moment of shock, her heart was accompanied by waves of disappointment. Hence, she closed her eyes again and fell into a deep sleep. In the afternoon, when Xiao Yichen returned home, Yu Yu dragged him to do his homework. Recently, under Yu Yu's guidance, Xiao Yichen had finally memorized the multiplication table. His arithmetic skills had also improved. At least, he did not have to count with his fingers anymore. Yun Shirshir was extremely gratified. However, Yu Yu felt a little indignant and raised his hands in protest. "Mommy, you're biased." He had memorized the multiplication table since he was 3 years old. He had never seen her look so gratified. Yun Shirshir was silent. She thought to herself, how can this be compared? In the past, Xiao Yichen found it difficult to add and subtract. Now he finally knows how to multiply and divide. After Xiao Yichen finished his homework, he pestered Yu Yu to go to the night park to enjoy the lanterns. It was going to be the Mid-Autumn Festival soon. Many parks were starting to prepare for the Mid-Autumn Festival. It was especially beautiful. After Yun Shirshir gave a few instructions, Xiao Yichen dragged Yu Yu out of the door. Night fell. The moon hung above the treetops. Mu Yaja brought her to China's first pavilion. They walked into the restaurant. This time, the manager of the restaurant served them personally. As soon as he saw them, He greeted them warmly and led them to the most elegant box. Earlier, Minyu had made a phone call to inform the manager that he was in charge of the matter. Of course, with Mu Yaja's status, he naturally did not dare to slight him. What's more, for a small restaurant like his to receive young Master Qin's attention, and for him to personally bring people over, it was naturally a great honor for him. Actually, this private room had been reserved by a guest at a high price earlier, and it was also scheduled for this evening. However, didn't they bump into it now? Minyu had repeatedly reminded him over the phone that his master did not like noisy environments. He would definitely open a private room with a quiet environment to serve them well. No matter how distinguished a guest was, it could not be compared to this. Even if he offended other guests, the manager had no choice but to force himself to push them aside. He respectfully led them into the private room. The manager personally handed them the menu and stood by the side with a smile on his face, waiting patiently. Naturally, there was no need to wait after ordering. Mu Yaja only needed to move his fingers to do what he wanted. Chapter 1093. It was only then that Yun Shirshir started to feel hungry. Her stomach was acting like an empty fort. Her eyes swept across the rows of appetizing pictures. Although these dishes were only pictures, she was so hungry that it was as if she could smell some kind of aroma from the pictures. She was drooling. She wanted to eat this. She wanted to eat that. Her eyes were a little dazzled as she looked at them. It was hard for her to make a decision. She was so greedy that she wanted to order the entire book on the table and eat to her heart's content without restraint. But she was also worried that she wouldn't be able to handle it. If she couldn't finish it alone, it would be a pity to waste it. Yun Shirshir raised her head to look at the man sitting by the side. She saw that he was casually playing with the exquisite cutlery, but he didn't look in her direction. It seemed like he wasn't hungry, but it also seemed like he didn't have much of an appetite. Yun Shirshir sighed in her heart. She was more or less annoyed. It seemed like she had to settle this meal by herself again. He didn't seem to be in the mood. She ordered a few dishes. The manager smiled and asked for Mu Yaja's opinion. Then, he turned around and left. The spacious private room suddenly quieted down. The scene now seemed too extravagant and corrupt. The two of them occupied a big round table just like that. Yun Shirshir raised her head to look at the decorations and furnishings around her. The antique decorations had a unique classical charm. Even the chairs were exquisitely carved wooden chairs. Suddenly, she saw something interesting. Yun Shirshir curiously stared at the ink painting beside the screen. The painting of a naked maid, the bold and elegant calligraphy. The painting paper had a yellowish hue from the passage of time. It seemed to be very precious. It was framed with an expensive frame and hung high on the wall. She kept looking at it. For a moment, she was entranced. She clicked her tongue in wonder. Mu Yaja glanced at her and saw that she was staring in a certain direction in a daze. He followed her line of sight and frowned slightly at the sight of the rather ancient painting. The manager quickly led the waiter to serve the dishes. Taking this opportunity, Yun Shirshir turned to him and said with a smile, "The painting hanging on the wall is very beautiful." The latter was startled. Her sudden words baffled him. He then followed her gaze and looked at the painting. Only then did he understand. His face revealed an unconcealable pride as he said with a smile, "Ha ha! That's right, this painting is not only beautiful, but it's also extremely precious." Yun Shirshir blinked in confusion as the manager continued, "Haha, do you know Gu Kaiji from East Jin Dynasty?" She shook her head. "Haha. Gu Kaiji was a very talented painter in history. This painting was one of his female historical proverbs, but it was his authentic work. It can be considered a precious collection." "This painting is from your collection?" she asked in surprise. The manager shook his head regretfully and explained, "If it's mine, why would I open this restaurant? Hee hee. This is from the collection of an old friend of mine who has a good relationship with me. He's the same as me. He likes rare scrolls and is also an antique collector. I heard that this painting was specially bought from England at a high price for his private collection. He often comes here, so he lent me this painting to hang in this private room. It's considered to be his face." Chapter 1094. However, he was not the owner of the painting, so he could not make the decision. Moreover, this painting was already rare and precious. How could it be bought with ordinary money? Moreover, this painting was his old friend's lifeblood. He treasured it so much that he did not even bat an eyelid when the price was raised to an astonishing level. Soon, all the dishes were served. The manager greeted them with a few more words and then left. Yun Shirshir was already craving for it. She picked up her chopsticks and wanted to pick up the sweet and sour pork ribs. However, her chopsticks were not very smooth and she was very unfamiliar with them. The pork ribs were slippery and she could not pick them up no matter how hard she tried. For a moment, she looked a little embarrassed. He really did not give her face. She was a little sulky. She bit her lip and looked around. She had no choice but to pick up other dishes. Just as she lowered her head to taste the delicious food, there was suddenly a pork rib on her plate. She looked up in surprise and saw Mu Yaja put down his chopsticks and looked at her indifferently. Yun Shirshir's heart warmed because of this little consideration. Mu Yaja chuckled. "Eat more if you like it." "Okay." Mu Yaja picked up his chopsticks again. He was more or less hungry. She didn't know why, but her gaze was deeply attracted to his white and slender fingers. They were so beautiful. The joints were distinct and the fingers were slender. There was a diamond steel ring on his middle finger. It was really more beautiful than a woman's hand. Such a hand, holding exquisite chopsticks, the scene was so beautiful that it could not be imagined. Mu Yaja glanced at her from the corner of his eyes. Seeing that she was staring at his hand, he could not help but raise his eyebrows. "Why aren't you eating? Your hand is so beautiful. It's white and long." Yun Shirshir said enviously. Mu Yaja's eyebrows twitched slightly. "Let's eat." "Okay." The two of them finished eating and left the restaurant. There was a river opposite the restaurant. Yun Shirshir was full. She pulled Mu Yaja for a walk by the river. Her phone suddenly rang. Yun Shirshir picked up the phone. It was Qin Zhou. "Shirshir, it's been decided for you. The role of Qin Changle in Lethal Beauty has been decided for you." "Thank you for your hard work, Chairman Qin." "Humph. If you ask me, I think you're an idiot. You don't want to play the female lead, but you want to play the evil female supporting character. Don't blame me for not reminding you. After this drama airs, you'd better wear a pot lid. Otherwise, if the fans recognize you, they'll definitely smash your rotten cabbage." Yun Shirshir let out a hollow laugh. "It can't be that cruel, right? You think? Has the female lead been decided?" "Yes." Lin Ji was the female lead from the start. Yun Shirshir pursed her lips and suddenly asked carefully, "Who's playing the male lead?" "It hasn't been finalized yet. I'll let you know when the results are out." After hanging up the phone, Yun Shirshir looked very happy. Her face was full of joy. She raised her head and said to Mu Yaja with a smile, "Mu Yaja, I've taken on a new drama. I'm so happy." She originally thought that after that incident, the chances of her getting the role in Lethal Beauty were very slim. She didn't expect that even though she had offended the higher-ups of Global Pictures, she would still get an important role. Yun Shirshir was so excited that she jumped into Mu Yaja's arms. She hugged his waist and jumped around like a child. Even Mu Yaja couldn't help but be infected by her happy mood. Yun Shirshir jumped into his arms. A faint fragrance wafted over. He couldn't help but wrap his arms around her body. Looking at her happy smile, he couldn't help but fall into a daze. Chapter 1095. She was so happy just because she got a supporting role? She was so easily satisfied. Looking at her bright smile, he couldn't help but feel a little impulsive. She was so beautiful when she smiled. He couldn't help but want to hold the most beautiful treasure in the world in front of her to make her smile. "You're so happy?" Mu Yaja laughed and couldn't help but ruffle her hair. "Yes." "Is it the female lead?" "The female lead has already been decided internally. I'm playing the supporting role," Yun Shirshir said. "You're so happy playing the supporting role?" Mu Yaja was speechless. What's wrong with the supporting role? Qin Changle's role requires a lot of acting skills. I think it's quite challenging. Although the character design is a little vicious and hateful. However, even a hateful person has her pitiful side. Looking at her satisfied face, Mu Yaja felt a little helpless. She was so easily satisfied? He was planning to invest in a huge blockbuster next and open up an international route for her. If she knew, would she be so happy that she would go crazy? Yun Shirshir didn't know what he was thinking. She continued to talk to herself, "Speaking of which, this is my first time acting in a costume drama. Aya, I'm looking forward to it. I don't know if my ancient costume is beautiful. Shameless, Muyaja couldn't help but say. Looking at her happy face, he couldn't help but laugh. He liked how carefree she was and how she chased after her dreams. He liked it very much. Yun Shirshir suddenly thought of something. She looked up and said to him, Muyaja, the Green Apple has finished filming and is in post-production. When the movie is released, let's go watch it together, okay? I'm not going to watch it. Muyaja pursed his thin lips and looked very cold. Why? Yun Shirshir was stunned. This is my first movie. How can you not support me? Muyaja narrowed his eyes and said with a dangerous tone. Don't tell me you want your man to go to the cinema and watch you kiss another man? Yun Shirshir suddenly fell silent. She couldn't help but argue. That was just an act. Why did you take it seriously? Acting isn't allowed either. In the future, all kissing scenes and bed scenes are forbidden. Muyaja said in a deep voice. Yun Shirshir's expression turned bitter. However, she sensed the strong jealousy in his words. She raised her head and looked at his face. Then, she moved closer to his lips and pretended to sniff him seriously. Muyaja gave her a sidelong glance. What is it? So sour. Yun Shirshir muttered. Then she couldn't help but snicker. Someone wouldn't be jealous, right? Muyaja pinched her cheeks. Don't laugh. I'll laugh. Hee hee. Someone is jealous. So sour. Muyaja was a little angry now. He grabbed her waist and trapped her on the edge of the bridge, trapping her between him and the railing. Yun Shirshir leaned against the railing of the bridge. Behind her was the cold river water. At night, the night wind blew and the cold air on the river surface rose. Don't laugh, he said. Yun Shirshir stopped laughing immediately. Muyaja was satisfied. He lowered his head and rubbed the tip of her nose. Suddenly, he gave her a gentle peck on the lips. Shirshir, I'll make you the best actress. Do you want it? Yun Shirshir pouted. No. She actually rejected him? One had to know that many people could only dream of him. She actually rejected him. This stupid woman. Why not? Chapter 1096. Muyaja did not think much of it and merely raised a brow with a smile. So supporting my woman is considered an unspoken rule too? It was only right for a husband to support his wife. Yet, she said that this was an unspoken rule? He did not understand her. Yun Shirshir blushed and snorted. That's considered an unspoken rule too. Anyway, I don't need you to support me. I'll rely on myself. Someone used to say that she's a fool if she doesn't rely on a backer, Muyaja said coolly as he cast her a sidelong glance. Yun Shirshir blushed again. That was before. It's different now. Ever since Lu Jingtian mocked her that she had relied on Muyaja to achieve what she had today, she felt indignant. She could get the role in the Green Apple, purely based on her own capabilities. Why did she negate all her hard work with just a few words? Since she said that she was nothing without Muyaja. Then she would wait and see. Even without Muyaja, she could still make a name for herself. If supporting you is an unspoken rule, then I would have done it a long time ago. Muyaja stated the truth expressionlessly. Yun Shirshir's face fell as she glared at him. You call this an unspoken rule? Yun Shirshir held his arm as they walked by the river. Suddenly, a trembling voice was heard from behind them. Brother Mu. Muyaja stopped in his tracks. Yun Shirshir could not help but stop in her tracks as well. She turned around and saw Song Enya and Song Yunchi standing behind them, staring at them in a daze. The smile on Yun Shirshir's face froze. Song Enya's unblinking eyes, however, were fixed on Muyaja. Her eyes glistened with tears as they misted over. She had been looking for him all this while, but he avoided her. At this moment, however, he was being so intimate with this woman. How could this be? This was especially so when she saw Muyaja kissing her gently and even rubbing Yun Shirshir's hair lovingly. In the past, he had only done such intimate actions to her. But now, he was giving his love and tenderness to another woman. She even said that she would make her the best actress. How much did Brother Mu like her for him to say such words? In the past, Muyaja could not be bothered to entertain her request for a role. Now, he was willing to use all means to help Yun Shirshir rise to the top. Song Enya felt aggrieved and jealous at the same time. A wave of jealousy threatened to engulf her like a black wave. Now, she could clearly see the love in Brother Mu's eyes when he looked at this woman. It was definitely not fake. It was just that she was unwilling to admit it. How could they be so close? They were so close. They were so close that Brother Mu even said, "Is supporting my woman considered an unspoken rule?" When Mu Yaja saw Song Enya, the smile on his face faded a little. Song Enya's cold gaze landed on Yun Shirshir. That pair of eyes seemed to be accusing her, but at the same time, they were like sharp blades slicing her body ruthlessly, as if they could not wait to cut off a piece of her flesh. If looks could kill, she would have been cut into pieces long ago. "Brother Mu. Why didn't you pick up my call? I went to the office to look for you, but you didn't answer my wallpaper. Why?" Song Enya took a few steps toward him, her eyes full of hurt. Mu Yaja's gaze was extremely cold, but he tightened his grip on Yun Shirshir's hand. Song Enya noticed his subtle action and her heart ached even more, as if it was being cut by a knife. Her heart suddenly turned cold. Chapter 1097. The jealousy in her heart seemed to be tearing it apart. Why? What right did Yun Shirshir have to be so intimate with him? Brother Mu even flashed that charming smile at her. One had to know that since they were young, Brother Mu had always been unsmiling in her eyes. He rarely smiled and always had a cold expression. Even when he smiled, there was not a trace of warmth. However, when he faced Yun Shirshir, the warmth of his smile seemed to melt the ice. Why, Song Enya was really indignant and extremely aggrieved. She kept feeling that her privileges by Mu Yaja's side had been snatched away. Even though Mu Yaja had pampered her since they were young, she was still careful, afraid that she would offend him if she did not do well. In her heart, Mu Yaja was like a high and mighty god who was not to be messed with. Yun Shirshir was different. The two of them walked by the river hand in hand like an ordinary couple, bickering, laughing, and flirting. Song Enya was envious. Is Brother Mu really sincere to me? She could tell that Yun Shirshir was not ordinary in his heart. She was special. She was even more special than me. Yun Shirshir's shoulders trembled when she saw the faint jealousy and viciousness in Song Enya's eyes. A woman's jealousy was really scary. Looking at Song Enya's eyes, if Mu Yaja was not around, she would probably skin her alive. Mu Yaja, let's go. Yun Shirshir tugged at his hand. Mu Yaja hummed in acknowledgement and turned to leave with his wife without sparing her another glance. Seeing that Mu Yaja was about to leave, Song Enya wanted to chase after him, but Song Yunshi grabbed her arm. She was angry and annoyed. Suddenly, she cried out indignantly, "Brother Mu, this woman is not that simple. I heard that Yun Shirshir had a meal with the executives of Universal Pictures a few days ago. I even saw her get into that man's car. Maybe, in order to climb up the social ladder, she even slept with him. What's so good about such a dirty woman?" Yun Shirshir froze when she heard this. She turned around and glared at her coldly. Mu Yaja furrowed his brows and turned around. His gaze was dark as he asked, "How did you know that she was attending a dinner with Worldwide's top management?" Song Enya did not catch the dangerous undertone in his words. Thinking that Mu Yaja knew about this matter, she excitedly said, "Look, you know that too, right? I was right, wasn't I? Brother Mu, you mustn't be deceived by this woman's innocent appearance. I think she is very shrewd. In order to achieve her goal, she will do anything, even... Let me ask you, how did you know about this?" Mu Yaja coldly interrupted her and questioned her. Everyone kept their mouths shut about this matter and did not spread it at all. It was impossible for outsiders to know about this. How did Song Enya know about this? Mu Yaja was sharp and could sense that there was something fishy about this. Otherwise, how did Song Enya know about it? Song Enya was stunned for a moment before she realized it. Of course, she could not tell Mu Yaja that she had hired paparazzi to secretly take photos of Yun Shirshir. Could she? Right now, the more words she spoke, the more likely it would be for her to slip up. She did not know how to smooth things over. Mu Yaja's eyes darkened. He could roughly guess how Song Enya knew about this matter. Could it be that she hired someone to take those two photos? Chapter 1098. Mu Yaja was a little disappointed in her and said coldly, "Enya, it seems that I've been too lenient with you in the past. Now, you'd better remember that Yun Shirshir is my woman. I don't want to hear a single word of her slander from your mouth in the future." I say okay. Song Enya, don't make me lose my patience with you. Mu Yaja's words were so cold that it made one's heart tremble. Song Enya bit her lower lip hard, but no matter how hard she tried, she could not say anything. How could she admit defeat in front of Yun Shirshir? Let her laugh at her? No way. She suppressed the grievance and anger in her heart as her whole body trembled. Song Yunchi smiled and said, Uncle Mu, Enya is still young and immature. She's a little willful, so why bother with her? There should be a limit to willfulness. As soon as Mu Yaja's cold words fell, Song Enya's shoulders trembled and her eyes turned sour. Let's go home. Mu Yaja put his arm around Yun Shirshir's shoulders and turned to leave without looking back. Song Enya was heartbroken. She threw herself into Song Yunchi's arms and cried sadly. When she got home, Xiaoi Chen and Yu Yu were also back. Yun Shirshir accompanied the two little guys for a walk around the house with little Zhazha. When she came back, she was so tired that she almost collapsed. She took a comfortable hot bath and fell asleep comfortably. Mu Yaja also took a bath and walked out in his pajamas. When he saw that she had fallen asleep, he turned off the lights and went to the study room. Wang Chuanda had already sent the documents for the planning case over via email. In addition, there were some cases that needed his approval. Hence, he sat in the study room for an hour and did not come out. In the blink of an eye, it was already 2 in the evening. Yun Shirshir was sleeping soundly when she was suddenly woken up by the ringtone of her cell phone. She lazily propped herself up and vaguely recognized that it was not her ringtone. She threw her head back on the bed, turned over, and continued to sleep. The bell rang once, and after a period of silence, it rang again. She was in a deep sleep and did not have the mental strength to pay attention to it. She was too lazy to care. She thought that she would wait for Mu Yaja to return to his room and check the missed calls on her phone. How could she have known that the ringtone would not let her go? It rang again and again, persistently driving her crazy. Yun Shirshir was also angry. This person was not letting her have a good night's sleep. Thus, he sat up and rubbed his messy hair. His expression was very ugly and very dark. Although she did not have a terrible morning temper like Mu Yaja, she was still depressed. Anyone who was not fully awake would naturally have a bad temper. She flipped over and got out of bed. She almost missed a step and fell to the ground. This time, she almost sprained her heel, and her mood became even worse. With great difficulty, she groped around in the direction of the ringtone and pounced on the clothes rack. After fiddling with it for a while, she fumbled in Mu Yaja's suit pocket for a long time before pulling out a vibrating cell phone. Yun Shirshir groggily swiped on the screen for a long time in her sleep before answering the call. Her tone was a little unhappy and sounded like she had just woken up. Who is it? It was already 1 in the morning. Who could be disturbing her sleep like this? On the other end, the woman who was about to speak suddenly choked in shock. Then she froze. Yun Shirshir. Out of the blue, a startled voice was heard. Yun Shirshir, who was half asleep and half awake, was jolted awake by the scream. Chapter 1099. Yun Shirshir. Why is Brother Mu's phone with you? Aren't you two staying together? Yun Shirshir hung up the phone right away. The phone rang again. She hung up again. This time, Song Enya called again. Yun Shirshir picked up the call with a displeased expression, her tone revealing her impatience. Song Enya, what do you want? Song Enya's slightly jealous and anxious voice came through the phone. Is Brother Mu with you? What does this have to do with you? Yun Shirshir, you're so cheap and shameless. Is it you? Brother Mu wants me to apologize to you. Is it your idea? Let me tell you, I won't apologize to a cheap wretch like you. Song Enya flew into a rage out of humiliation and cursed a few times. Yun Shirshir, who was already feeling frustrated, hung up the phone, switched it to silent mode, and threw herself back on the bed. However, her ears kept ringing with Song Enya's curses, which filled her with grievances. Tossing and turning, she could not fall asleep no matter how hard she tried. By the time Mu Yaja returned home, it was already 2 in the morning. When he returned to his room, he turned on the table lamp and saw Yun Shirshir sleeping peacefully on her side. His thin lips curled slightly as he walked over to cover her with the blanket, only to see that his phone had been tossed aside. Mu Yaja picked up his phone and glanced at the screen. He saw that there were 25 calls from Song Enya, and 2 of them had already been answered. She picked up the calls? Then, what did Song Enya say? Mu Yaja knitted his brows and walked to the balcony to return the call. It rang a few times before it was picked up. Song Enya's voice came from the other end. Is this Brother Mu? It's already so late. Why are you looking for me? Brother Mu, I'm sad. Can you come over and keep me company? Song Enya's voice sounded a little intoxicated, as if she had been drinking for a long time. Even her words were a little slurred. Brother Mu, I'm so sad that I'm about to die. Can you keep me company? Where are you? Monarch's Descent. Sovereign's Descent was the most famous bar in Beijing. Junlin Bar was opened by a famous artist in the entertainment industry, and most of the customers who went there were well-known directors, artists, celebrities, and producers in the entertainment industry. Of course, some of the rich young masters in S-City also frequented the bar, and it was known as the Hall of Fame in Beijing. It was also a bar that Song Enya frequented. She seemed to be in a bad mood from crying. Coupled with the fact that she was drunk, the Missy had lost her usual elegance and arrogance, revealing the fragility in her bones without any concealment. She couldn't figure it out. Her love for Mu Yaja was no less than Yun Shirshir. Why was Yun Shirshir able to obtain his favor? But she couldn't? Holding on to a glimmer of hope, she mustered up the courage to call him. Even if he didn't pick up, she thought. Maybe he didn't want to pick up? However, when she held on to such a humble hope and swallowed her pride to call him again and again, it was Yun Shirshir who picked up the call in the end. It's already so late, yet he's with Yun Shirshir? Could it be that Brother Mu isn't just playing around with this woman but is serious about her? Does he really like Yun Shirshir? At that moment, Song Enya suddenly felt that she had lost all hope. Chapter 1100. He indulged her, and no matter what she wanted, he would satisfy it one by one. She had always thought that she would be the only woman he would dote on forever. Even if she did not have a status, she was willing to be by his side. She did not expect that her position by his side would be replaced by another woman. Yun Shirshir. He seemed to dote on Yun Shirshir more than he doted on her. He indulged her in everything. Yes. She was jealous. She was crazy jealous. Why? Why could Yun Shirshir have what she could not have so easily? This was not fair. The more she thought about it, the sadder she felt. She burst into heart-wrenching sobs over the phone. Mu Yaja could not help but frown and whisper. Stop fooling around. Go home. Brother Mu, can you come over and keep me company? She almost begged him humbly. Just this once. Come over and keep me company now, okay? Mu Yaja remained silent. He turned to look at Yun Shirshir, who was lying on the bed, and a hint of coldness appeared between his brows. Her phone was suddenly snatched away from her, and a man's voice came through. Hello, are you Enya's friend? She's dead drunk now. If she continues drinking, I'm afraid something will happen. She refuses to let anyone send her home and stays at the bar. If this continues, I'm afraid something will happen. Mu Yaja remained silent. The man continued. Quickly come and take a look at Shinya. It's not a good thing to get drunk all day. If word gets out that the mayor's daughter is getting drunk at a bar, it'll ruin her reputation. Quickly come over and send her home. If anything happens, it'll be too late for regrets. The last sentence had a deeper meaning. Mu Yaja frowned and glanced at Yun Shirshir again before replying casually. I'll be right there. With that, he hung up the phone. Mu Yaja walked to the bedside and covered her with the quilt. He planted a kiss on her forehead, then turned and left the bedroom, closing the door behind him. Behind him, Yun Shirshir slowly opened her eyes, but they were filled with coldness. Inside the bar, Song Enya was overjoyed when she heard that Mu Yaja was coming over immediately. Brother Mu still cared about her. He drove all the way. Mu Yaja parked the car in front of the bar, but he didn't get out of the car. It was not that he did not know what Song Enya was thinking about him, nor was it that he had not expressed his feelings for her before. Perhaps his attitude wasn't clear enough? Song Enya still harbored illusory fantasies about him. To her, it was just a form of sustenance for her mother. It was only because she had a similar appearance to his mother that he couldn't help but think of Jiang Yishan when he saw her. Therefore, he had always doted on her and indulged her. Whatever she liked, he would naturally go along with her wishes. He still had some feelings for Di Tian, but even so, he still had his bottom line. After getting out of the car, he walked into the bar. It was already midnight, but for this bar, the atmosphere had just reached its climax. In order to avoid the paparazzi, many artistes could only go out very late at night. Hence, the bar was really starting to get lively at this moment. Mu Yaja walked to the bar counter and quickly spotted the woman lying in front of it. He slowly walked over to Song Enya's side and reached out to give her shoulder a push. Chapter 1101. She didn't seem to have put on any makeup when she went out. Her face looked a little haggard, but her delicate facial features were still beautiful. It seemed that because she had been crying for a long time, her beautiful eyes were a little red and swollen, making her look even more miserable and pitiful. The music in the bar quieted down at once, and a soothing slow rocking song played. Mu Yaja did not push her away, but his face looked a little cold. He lowered his head and looked at her coldly before slowly saying, "Don't you think you look ugly when you're so drunk?" Song Enya was stunned. She lowered her eyes helplessly, her tear-filled face looking miserable as she mumbled, "Yes, I also think that I'm ugly like this, but—" "Brother Mu, why are you ignoring me?" Mu Yaja said lightly, "I've said it before. Before you realize your mistake." "What mistake? What did I do wrong?" She broke down suddenly. I just, Enya, I know what you think of me, but I should have made my attitude very clear. It's impossible between us." "What do you mean by impossible? Is it because we're related by blood? Is it?" She hugged him sadly. "I know that I'll be prejudiced by the world if I'm with you, but who asked me to love you so much? Brother Mu, I love you more than anyone else." She suddenly thought of something and looked up at him. Forcing a smile, she said, "I don't want a status. I don't want you to marry me, either. I just want to stay by your side and be your lover for the rest of my life. I just want to be with you for the rest of my life, whether or not I have a status, whether or not I have to see the light of day." Ridiculous. Mu Yaja's eyes were cold. "Don't you think it's ugly to make yourself so lowly?" "I don't care," she said hoarsely, a line of tears falling down her face. "That's because I really love and adore you, brother." Mu Yaja's lips curled into a cold smile, but he still said cruelly, "But I don't love you." She was stunned by his words as if she had been struck by lightning. She asked indignantly, "Then do you love Yun Shirshir?" Song Enya suddenly grabbed him by the collar and asked seriously, "Brother Mu, answer me, do you love her?" Mu Yaja looked away coldly and did not look at her again. Whether he loved or not, it was between two people. It had nothing to do with a third party. There was no need for him to answer her ridiculous question. Alas, his refusal to answer the question misled Song Enya into thinking that he did not love Yun Shirshir that much. "I don't believe that you love her. Brother Mu is just playing with her. Isn't he?" She was eager to confirm, eager to find the answer on his face. Mu Yaja coldly ordered, "Enya, are you done fooling around? Go home now. Do you understand?" "You haven't answered my question." Song Enya refused to let go of this topic. She then smiled bitterly. "You don't love her." "Of." Song Enya was stunned. She said in a daze, "I heard that you're planning to hold a press conference to announce your marriage. I'm going to announce my marriage." Mu Yaja's tone was cold. He paused for a moment and then said in a deep voice, "But not with her." Song Enya was completely stunned. Chapter 1102. He said that he would announce his marriage, but it was not with Mu Wanru. Who could it be then? Could it be Yun Shirshir? Her heart sank the moment she thought of this possibility. Could it be Yun Shirshir? She suddenly panicked and grabbed his sleeve. "Brother Mu, are you going to announce your marriage with Yun Shirshir?" Mu Yaja suddenly lowered his head to look at her. It was still a face similar to Jiang Yishan's. However, this face was a stranger's. "Do you know?" Mu Yaja suddenly asked in a low voice. His abrupt words made her heart skip a beat. "Huh? What?" "Your face disgusts me." Those heartless and cruel words caused her heart to be completely frozen in ice. She looked at him with a heavy blow, somewhat unable to believe it. In her eyes, large drops of tears rolled down uncontrollably. "You think I'm disgusting?" She suddenly broke down. "You actually said that I'm disgusting because of that B*TCH. Brother Mu, you're so cruel. How can you be so cruel?" Mu Yaja brushed her hand away and said coldly, She'll be my future wife. Song Enya's expression froze. So, please treat her with respect. His words were undoubtedly a ruthless slap to her face. It was incomparably painful. Her dignity, along with that little bit of hope, was completely crushed under his feet. She came from a good family and was beautiful. There was no lack of fanatical suitors, but this man in front of her had rejected her. Why was he so cruel to her? At the side, many people curiously looked in their direction. Mu Yaja slowly turned his face, his frosty gaze sweeping across the room. The crowd was so frightened that they immediately shrank back, not daring to take another look. He looked at her again and said indifferently, "I'm here to take you home. If you don't listen, I won't care about you anymore." After saying that, he turned around to leave. Song Enya frantically pounced on him and hugged him from behind, her voice filled with despair and helplessness. "I beg you. Don't abandon me. Brother Mu, I beg you. Don't abandon me. I'm scared. I'm so scared." Mu Yaja said. "Then let's go home." His tone left no room for discussion. It was obvious that his patience had run out. Song Enya bit her lower lip as tears streamed down her cheeks uncontrollably. She choked out, "All right, I'll listen to you. I'll listen to you. I'll go home now." He drove her all the way to the Song family. The car stopped at the entrance, but Song Enya did not make any move to get out. Mu Yaja held onto the steering wheel and looked at her coldly. Sensing his piercing gaze, Song Enya shuddered and raised her head, only to meet his frosty eyes. "Brother Mu, get out of the car," Mu Yaja ordered. "Brother Mu, don't be so fierce to me, okay? You used to be so gentle to me." Song Enya felt wronged and was about to cry again. Alas, her tears did not work on him at all. If it were in the past, he would still be soft-hearted, but now he was indifferent. His heart turned cold, but it was despairing. Chapter 1103. Mu Yaja raised his wrist and looked at the time. His patience seemed to have run out. She immediately said, "I'll apologize to Yun Shirshir tomorrow. I'll apologize sincerely. I know I'm in the wrong, but I only have one request. Can we go back to how things were before? Forget what I said today. Let bygones be bygones. Don't mention it again. Is that okay? Just treat it as a fresh start." Mu Yaja furrowed his brows. His face remained expressionless for a long time, but he did not reject her request, either. She was elated, knowing that he had agreed to it. Thus, she pushed open the door and got out of the car. Just as she closed the door, Mu Yaja stepped on the accelerator and the car sped away. He left so decisively. Song Enya's heart started to ache. Once she got home, she threw herself into the sofa and cried her heart out. She really could not think of anyone else who could occupy a place in such a proud man's heart. Yun Shirshir. What right did Yun Shirshir have to win his heart? Why couldn't she have it? She could not figure it out. She really could not figure it out, and she did not want to. She was already deep in the swamp and beyond redemption. When he reached home, Yun Shirshir was still sleeping soundly. She slept peacefully, but her blanket had been kicked to one side. A look of helplessness appeared on his face. He finally knew who Xiao Yichen had inherited her habit of kicking her blanket. Thus, he slowly walked to the bedside and sat down on the side. He could not help reaching out to pinch her cheek. She seemed to be unconscious in her sleep, but she was still keenly aware that someone was rubbing her face. She waved her hand in dissatisfaction, but Mu Yaja grabbed it. He gently bent his head and pecked her fingertips with his lips. He covered her with the blanket again and turned to leave. Mu Yaja stood in the back garden. Early in the morning, the beautiful morning light sprinkled down. He lit a cigarette, took a deep puff, and a thin wisp of smoke dissipated in the morning breeze. When Yun Shirshir woke up, she was awakened by Qin Zhou's ringtone. "There's an exclusive interview with Bazaar magazine tomorrow. Before the interview, you'll have to shoot a set of blockbusters. Arrive at the company before noon. You're not allowed to be late." Yun Shirshir's face was full of resentment. She walked to the window and looked out. She saw Mu Yaja standing in the back garden. She didn't know when he had returned, but he was holding his phone in his hand and seemed to be talking on the phone. "You're back," she said. Mu Yaja turned around and frowned. He had always paid attention to details. She said that he was back. Did that mean that she knew that he had gone out in the middle of the night? Yun Shirshir walked to the back garden and hugged him from behind. She smiled and said, "Why are you standing here alone in a daze?" As for him going out in the middle of the night, he did not mention a single word. It seemed that he had no intention of asking about it. Mu Yaja was stunned for a moment before asking, "Why are you up so early?" "I was woken up by Qin Zhou's call." She rubbed her eyes and looked resentful. "He called to inform me that there's an exclusive interview tomorrow and asked me not to be late." "Go back to sleep." "No." She acted coquettishly. "I just want to hug you." She felt inexplicably at ease when she hugged him. He did not say anything else. After a moment of silence he suddenly said, "I'm going abroad tomorrow. I won't be back for about half a month." "Going abroad again?" She couldn't help but complain. "Fourth uncle called and said that he's looking for me." Mu Yaja turned around and scratched her nose. "Be good. I'll be back as soon as possible." Chapter 1104. The next day, Yun Shirshir was at Huanyu Tower for an important interview. In the waiting room, she flipped through the script for The Love Diary, while Ding Ning styled her hair. From time to time, she would look at Yun Shirshir's tranquil face in the mirror and could not help teasing, "Shirshir, when will the filming of The Love Diary start?" After leaving the production team of The Green Apple, Yun Shirshir signed Ding Ning as her personal stylist. Ding Ning was a top-notch stylist, but there were many factions in the fashion industry. They often schemed against each other and ostracized each other. To be able to get close to a superstar, one needed connections. Ding Ning had the skills. After all, she had won many makeup competitions. However, she lacked connections and was not scheming. Hence, she was ostracized and had no choice but to rush to the set. Ding Ning was overjoyed and grateful that Yun Shirshir had signed her as her personal stylist and even offered her a high salary. Being able to become Yun Shirshir's personal stylist was probably the luckiest thing that had happened to her since she entered the industry. Yun Shirshir glanced at her and said, "Next month." "We're still discussing the exact date." Mu Shi, who was browsing through her phone at the side, said with a smile, "I heard that Gu Xingza's team has already thought of a couple name for Shirshir and Xingza. When the filming of The Love Diary starts, our Shirshir will be in the headlines." "What's the name?" Mu Shi's eyes lit up as she smiled. "The Lucky Couple." "The Lucky Couple?" Ding Ning heard that. Gu Xingza's Xing, and Yun Shirshir's Yun. Xing Yun and Xingza are the Lucky Couple. This is a good couple name. Ha ha ha. Actually, I also like watching The Love Diary, and think that it's very interesting. The production team for this show is top-notch in the country. It's super heavyweight. Mu Shi suddenly cupped her face and said in a love-struck manner, "Sigh, I'm so envious of Shirshir. She can pretend to be a couple with Xingza. If it were me, I'd wake up laughing in my dreams." "If it were you, Xingza would cry in his dreams." Ding Ning could not help but tease. Mu Shi pretended to be angry. "Hey Ding Ning, you're not allowed to say that about me." Ding Ning suddenly said longingly, "Wouldn't it be great if Shirshir and Xingza could make their act real? At that time, wouldn't our family's Shirshir become the sister-in-law of the Heavenly King?" Mu Shi was startled. Mu Yaja's cold face suddenly appeared in her mind. She immediately stopped. "Ding Ning, don't talk nonsense." Ding Ning immediately became serious. I'm sorry. I was just joking." "Shirshir, don't mind it." Yun Shirshir said faintly, "It's okay. It's just a joke. It's no big deal." There was a sudden knock on the door. Tock tock tock. The two looked at each other. "Who is it? Don't tell me someone is here to rush us?" "I haven't finished my makeup yet," Ding Ning said nervously. "How is that possible? It's not time for the interview yet." Mu Shi walked to the door and opened it, only to see Song Enya standing there. She did not know who the other was, so she asked curiously, "Who are you looking for?" "I'm looking for Yun Shirshir." Song Enya's expression was cold, and she seemed to have come with ill intentions. Yun Shirshir was stunned when she heard her unruly voice. She then raised her head and looked at the door. Seeing her cold expression and fierce gaze, Mu Shi was a little frightened. Song Enya ignored her and pushed her aside to enter the room. Chapter 1105. Mu Shi hurriedly tried to pull her back, but the Missy flung her hand away. She walked up to Yun Shirshir and looked down at her condescendingly. Yun Shesher was on high alert. Raising a brow, she looked up and met the other's gaze without fear. The Missy sized her up coldly and remained silent for a long time. Since she did not speak, Yun Shesher took the initiative to ask, "What's the matter?" The Missy glanced coldly at Mu Shi and Ding Ning from the corner of her eyes. Yun Shesher understood the meaning in her eyes, so she said, "Ding Ning, Mu Shi, you two can leave first." "Shesher, who is she? Is it all right?" Mu Shi asked worriedly. "It's fine." Yun Shesher comforted her. Only then did the assistant walk out uneasily. Ding Ning followed her out and closed the door. Now, only the two of them were left in the lounge. Yun Shesher curled her lips. "Say it. Why are you looking for me?" "Hee hee. As you wish." Song Enya was like a high and mighty almsgiver as her red lips parted slightly. "I'm here to apologize to you." Although she said that she was apologizing, her face did not show any sincerity. Instead, it was filled with contempt, disdain, and even disgust. If she had not promised Mu Yaja, she would never bow her head and apologize to Yun Shesher. She had already gone through a huge psychological struggle to come here. Yun Shesher raised a brow and glanced at her. Apologize? Song Enya actually apologized to her? Was the sun going to rise from the west? "That day I shouldn't have hit you. I shouldn't have been unreasonable. It's my fault. I apologize to you." Song Enya gritted her teeth and nodded her head symbolically. However, apologizing to her was a great humiliation. She clenched her fists so tightly that her nails almost dug into her flesh. It was extremely painful. That's it? Yun Shesher was originally looking forward to it, but in the end, this apology had no sincerity at all. It really disappointed her. It was no wonder that a pampered Missy like Song Enya had always been pampered. She was arrogant, unreasonable, and condescending. Lowering her head to others was worse than killing her. It was not easy for her to say such a thing. Hee hee. I don't accept it. Yun Shesher expressed her attitude. Song Enya furrowed her brows and glared at him when she heard that. What? She put down her pride to apologize, but she actually did not accept it? What right do you not accept my apology? She questioned harshly, feeling incomparably humiliated. If it weren't for her misgivings, she would have slapped him long ago. What do you not to accept my apology? Look, what a lofty and self-righteous rhetorical question. Must she accept her apology to her to accept to apologize to apologize to apologize? Although she was apologizing, she didn't show any basic respect. Her words gave people the feeling that she was superior and didn't have any sincerity. How could she accept it? Yun Shesher said, "It's your business whether you apologize or not. It's my business whether I accept it or not." B*tse. Song Enya subconsciously wanted to scold her, but Mu Yaja's cold gaze suddenly appeared in her mind. She shut her mouth abruptly and glared fiercely at her. Her sharp gaze was as if she wanted to carve a piece of flesh off her body. "Since you're done apologizing, can you get lost now?" Yun Shesher smiled slightly, but she mercilessly ordered her to leave. Chapter 1106. Yun Shesher raised a brow and shrugged innocently. "What else can I do? Miss Song, I'm very busy and have an exclusive interview soon. If you're looking for me, I'll get my assistant to arrange another time. How about that?" Song Enya, on the other hand, raised her hand out of habit. She could not wait to slap that disgusting face of hers. She was used to being arrogant and willful. She was like this at home, venting her anger on the servants whenever she was unhappy. Yun Shesher glanced at her frivolously. "What? Are you going to hit me again? There are surveillance cameras here. It won't look good on the gentle and virtuous mayor's daughter to slap someone just because of a disagreement, right?" Song Enya was at a loss for words. Biting her red lips, she suppressed the anger in her heart and retracted her hand abruptly. She then turned around and left hatefully. She opened the door and walked out. Mu Shi and Ding Ning, who were chatting, were shocked to see her appear at the door with a furious look. "What are you looking at?" Song Enya glared at her assistant. Mu Shi only felt that this woman was being unreasonable and did not think much of it. Thus she stubbornly retorted, "Whether I'm looking at you or not is none of your business. Why do you care?" B*tch. How dare you talk back? Song Enya gave her assistant a tight slap across her face. This slap vented all the grievances she had suffered in front of Yun Shirshir. The force of the slap was so strong that it stunned her. After being slapped for no reason, Mushi flew into a rage out of humiliation and stepped forward to reason with her. Ding Ning tugged at her from behind and whispered, "Mushi, forget it. Don't cause trouble. What if she's someone you can't afford to offend?" Mushi covered her burning cheeks and glared at her fiercely. Song Enya left with a wave of her hand. Mushi scolded from behind. "Ridiculous. What kind of person is she? She's crazy. All right. Let's go in." Ding Ning pushed Mushi through the door, but the latter was still indignant. "She hit me for no reason. What a crazy woman." Yun Shirshir was stunned when she heard that. She looked at her face and asked, "What's wrong?" "That woman just now was so fierce. She slapped me," Mushi said, feeling wronged. Anger rose in Yun Shirshir's heart. She pursed her lips and apologized. "I'm sorry. It's my fault that you've been wronged." Aya, I'm fine. Why are you apologizing to me? You're not the one who hit me." Mushi waved her hand and asked, "Who's that woman? How unruly." "Song Enya." "Song Enya? Who is it?" Yun Shirshir said, "She is the mayor's daughter. Her father is Song Zhenghua." Mushi was stunned by his words. No wonder he was so arrogant. It turned out that he had some background. She was wondering how she could casually sneak into Huanyu Tower. At the thought of how she had just talked back to the mayor's daughter and almost got into a fight, she felt a lingering fear. It wasn't that she bullied the weak and feared the strong, but this was how realistic society was. Some people could not be offended at all costs. Otherwise, one would not even know how they died. She was just a small ant that could not afford to offend. Ding Ning said from the side, "To think that you almost got into a fight with her just now." "Thank you, Ding Ning. If not for you, I'd probably have fought with her." Mushi patted her chest in relief. Following the increase in Yun Shirshir's exposure and popularity, her value also rose. In the past, she did not need to hide when she went out, but now, she could not wait to be fully armed. Chapter 1107. Hats, sunglasses, and whistles were the standard. Even so, she would still become the center of attention if she appeared in a crowded place. As a result, Yun Shirshir did not even have the chance to bring the two little munchkins to a restaurant for a meal. She even had to keep an eye out for suspicious paparazzi when she went out to prevent them from following her. Even though she was very careful, the paparazzi came and went unpredictably. They still managed to take a few photos of her and Xiao Shui together. Xiao Shui was so happy that she could not sleep these few days because of one thing. Gu Xingze had followed her. She had mentioned to Yun Shirshir that she had been a fan of Gu Xingze for many years. She had been a fan of Gu Xingze ever since he debuted. If Gu Xingze followed her for even a day, she would jump for joy. She had just mentioned it casually, but Yun Shirshir had taken it to heart. After a show, she had asked Gu Xingze for help. Gu Xingze followed her. Xiao Shui did not notice it at first. Her Weibo was empty and she had very few followers. Most of them were zombie fans who came from nowhere. Hence, she did not deliberately look at any new followers. She only went on Weibo to look at the hot search list and Yun Shirshir's Weibo. Other than that, she did not do anything else. Until she suddenly gained a few thousand followers overnight. Someone left a comment under one of her posts. "Wow! Gu Xingze actually followed you. Gu Xingze actually followed you. Guru, what's your relationship with Gu Xingze?" Xiao Shui clicked on her followers and scrolled to the lowest. She saw that Gu Xingze had followed her. Gu Xingze's ID was his English name. She did not believe it at first and thought that she was dreaming. She rubbed her eyes repeatedly until she opened it and saw that it was really Gu Xingze's Weibo account. She then covered her face with her hands and danced with joy. "Shirshir, I love you so much." As soon as they met, Xiao Shui threw herself on her, holding her face and kissing her. Yun Shirshir couldn't push him away. Xiao Shui was so excited that she couldn't sleep for a few nights. All she cared about was holding her phone and looking at Gu Xingze's account. She scrolled through his posts several times and smiled foolishly. She couldn't believe that Gu Xingze really paid attention to her. She would wake up laughing even in her dreams. Yun Shirshir was suddenly a little afraid of her. If Xiao Shui knew that she was about to film the reality show The Love Diary with Gu Xingze, would she choke her to death? Here, it's for you. Xiao Shui gave her a box of exquisite chocolates. Yun Shishir, on the other hand, did not like chocolate, so she gave it to her assistant. On this day, after the program ended, Yun Shishir rushed to the radio station for an exclusive interview. She sang the solo version of You Are My Love Song and ended the interview. The days passed in a busy but peaceful cycle. Until a sudden assassination attempt alarmed her. In the afternoon, Li Hanlin called to ask her where she was. At that time, Yun Shishir had just finished a job and was on her way home. Li Hanlin asked her to go to school. His tone was extremely nervous, but he was still restraining himself. Yun Shishir could still catch an unusual tremor in his voice. She immediately ordered the driver to turn around and drive to school. The driver could also hear the nervousness and anxiety in her voice and sped all the way to school. Chapter 1108. The police, armed to the teeth, were standing guard at the school gate to maintain order. The school gate was crowded with parents who had been notified of the incident. The police were constantly leading the students out of the school. The faces of the teachers and students, who were being escorted out of the school, were filled with panic and anxiety. Rather than panic, it was more appropriate to call it fear. Yes, fear. The children especially kept throwing themselves into the arms of their parents, who had been waiting at the school gate for a long time, and wailed in fright. Some, however, were at a loss. They did not know what had happened and could only look at the police cars surrounding the school gate in panic. Yun Shishir was a little stunned. She did not know what was going on, so she pulled a parent aside to ask. The parent, who was carrying the child, said in a panic, "There was a shooting incident in the afternoon. A student called and said that school was dismissed early. I only found out what had happened when I rushed over." With that, he left in a hurry. Shooting incident. Yun Shishir was stunned for a moment before she walked toward the school gate. Someone grabbed her arm all of a sudden. She turned around and saw Li Hanlin. He was tall and very conspicuous in the crowd. In his arms was Yun Tianyu, who was wrapped in a blanket. "Principal, come with me." Li Hanlin pulled her away and got into a bulletproof car. Li Hanlin only calmed down once they were in the car. Yun Shishir immediately took Yu from his arms. Under the blanket, the boy's face and lips were pale. He was obviously in extreme shock. He did not say a word, but his shoulders could not stop trembling. Yun Shishir hugged him tightly. Yu, don't be afraid. Mommy is here. Mommy will protect you." "Mommy, Mommy." His arms suddenly hugged Yun Shishir's waist tightly. His little face was buried in her chest, but his body was still trembling uncontrollably. Li Hanlin recounted what had happened. The incident happened in the afternoon. The first lesson in the afternoon was music class. Yu tidied up the textbook, but the music teacher was not there yet. He did not have a good afternoon nap, so he felt very sleepy and leaned on the table. However, the moment he fell to the ground, it really happened in that second. A fatal sniper bullet penetrated the window and left a hole. It whizzed past his hairline and accurately pierced the temple of his deskmate sitting next to him in a split second. In an instant, a line of red and white blood splattered on his face. Yu was startled by the sudden loud noise. He felt some warm liquid on his face, and when he touched it with his hand, his fingertips came in contact with sticky blood. His face instantly turned pale with fright. Sitting at the same table with him was a little girl. She was smart and always had a gentle smile on her face. Yu turned around and saw that the poor girl had a bloody hole in her head before she could understand what was going on. He didn't even let out a groan of pain. The expression on his face was still the same as when he was waiting for class. Just like that, he fell straight onto the table and died without knowing why. He could only watch helplessly as a life was lost in an instant right in front of him. What made him even more fearful was that if he did not suddenly feel sleepy and collapse, that bullet would have pierced his head. Chapter 1109. The police speculated that the culprit was a serial killer. The culprit was probably someone with violent tendencies. After being provoked by the outside world or being mentally unbalanced, he displayed extreme antisocial behavior. Was that really the case, though? Yun Tianyu did not think so, though. Before the assassination, the culprit hacked into the school's security system, destroyed the CCTV, and even cut off the surveillance cameras within a few hundred meters of the school. This was a premeditated assassination. The location of the ambush should be at the abandoned building opposite the classroom. That abandoned building was 100 meters away from the school, yet it was the perfect spot for an ambush. Yoon Tian-yu was in a state of mental stagnation. This assassination was too sudden and caught him off guard. The culprit was definitely a well-trained killer. After the failed assassination attempt, the culprit escaped unscathed and did not leave any traces behind. Just as Yoon Tian-yu had guessed, this was almost a successful assassination attempt. He was only a few milliseconds away from death. Naturally, Lee Hanlin would not tell Yoon Shirshir about Yu Yu's suspicions. He only told her that this was a school shooting accident. Yoon Shirshir hugged Yu Yu with heartache. The child was still so young, yet he had experienced such a terrifying shooting accident. He must be scared out of his wits. She kept comforting Yu Yu with her gentle voice. Only then did his fear gradually subside. The car drove back home. Yoon Shirshir carried Yu Yu into the bedroom. Just as she placed him on the bed, he suddenly jumped down from the bed, walked to the window, and closed it tightly. He then drew the curtains. The entire bedroom was instantly engulfed in darkness. He walked to the door and locked it from the inside. His hands froze for a moment. Then, perhaps because he was too nervous, he relaxed all of a sudden. His whole body pressed against the door and slowly fell to the ground. His breathing was somewhat rapid and uneven. Yoon Shirshir hugged him with heartache and comforted him gently. Yu Yu, don't be afraid. It's all right now. Don't be afraid. Mommy is here. Mommy is here with you. Yu Yu buried her little face in her arms. Her face was expressionless, but from an angle that Yoon Shirshir couldn't see, her eyes were filled with murderous intent. If other children were to encounter such a terrifying scene, with their lives hanging by a thread, they would definitely be scared to the point of crying. On the other hand, Yu Yu did not shed a single tear. She only held onto Yoon Shirshir's clothes tightly and hugged her tightly. Deep in her eyes, there was still a lingering fear. More than that, there was fear and anger. He did not know who had sent the assassin to assassinate him. He was just afraid that the murderer's next target would be his mommy. It was all due to luck that he was able to escape and brush shoulders with the god of death. However, if something like this were to happen again, he was worried that something bad would happen to his mommy. Compared to himself, he was more worried about Yoon Shirshir's safety. Yu Yu bit down hard on her lips, her pearly white teeth leaving a deep mark on her lips. He did not speak a word for the whole day. Yoon Shirshir's heart ached as if it were being stabbed by a knife. She did not leave his side for the whole day. It was late at night. Yoon Shirshir hugged Yoon Tian-yu and fell asleep quietly. In the darkness, Yoon Tian-yu slowly opened his eyes. When he turned his head, he saw Yoon Shirshir sleeping peacefully. He cupped her face and planted a light kiss between her brows. Then, he carefully extricated himself from her embrace. He left the bedroom and entered the study room. After locking the door, he gave Lee Hanlin a call. Chapter 11:10. Agent Lee, dispatch a team of mercenaries and station them around the villa. Don't let anyone get close to it. Yes, I understand, Lee Hanlin answered. How many men can you dispatch now? I can dispatch 2 teams from the branch with about a dozen men. Yu Yu frowned. Not enough. I'm afraid that the culprit won't give me a chance to breathe after failing to get rid of me this time. It'll take some time for the team from the headquarters to reach the capital. Only then did Yoon Tian-yu's heart settle a little. Have you investigated the matter thoroughly? No. It seems that this isn't a simple assassination. The killer is skillful and didn't leave any traces behind. Do you have anyone in mind? No, Yoon Tian-yu cursed. D***. They were in a passive position in the current situation. The enemy was in the dark while they were out in the open. Every minute was dangerous, and could even be fatal. I suspect that the culprit's target is most likely Mommy and me. I was lucky enough to escape this time. However, there won't be a next time. Yoon Tian-yu calmly analyzed. Lee Hanlin was silent for a moment before he suddenly asked, Director Yoon, have you considered joining Hurricane Group? Yoon Tian-yu leaned back slightly against the back of the chair. His eyes suddenly turned deep and cold. As Lee Hanlin and Yoon Tian-yu got closer, Yoon Tian-yu's trust in him grew. He also gradually understood that, after the veil was lifted, the mysterious Hurricane Group had a close relationship with Yoon Tian-yu. Yun Tianyo's relationship with Hurricane Group could be traced back to a design he had designed. Due to his poor health, Yun Tianyu rarely had the chance to go out. He spent most of his childhood in the hospital. He liked to play with toys since he was young. However, Yu was different from other children. Other children played with toys because they liked to play with them. Once they were tired of playing with them, they would throw them aside and no longer care about them. But he was different. He liked to fiddle with intricate toys and study their composition. Gradually, this study was no longer limited to simple fiddling. He learned to take apart toys. No matter how intricate the toy was, when it fell into his hands, he could carefully take apart every part and finally assemble it perfectly. In addition to toys, he especially liked to study computers, machinery, and other sophisticated things. When he was 5 years old, he drew the design of a toy missile car and posted it on the bidding website. Soon, it attracted the attention of many toy manufacturers. One day, a mysterious organization contacted him and claimed that they wanted to buy out his design. Furthermore, they offered a sky-high reward. A check with 9 digits. Yun Tianyu felt incredulous until he learned that this mysterious organization was rumored to own half of the world's arms market. It had close ties with governments, mafias, and various terrorist organizations. Its influence spanned across both the legal and illegal worlds. It was the Hurricane Group. The Hurricane Group was a name that could shake the world. Every action of theirs was an existence that could affect the state of the world. Not only did it have a 50% share of the global arms market, every war in the world had to be waged from the Hurricane Group's armory, which was worth tens of billions. Chapter 11:11. It could be said that this firearms group was so powerful that no one dared to be unafraid of it. The reason why they were interested in his design was that it could be used in the military and even develop a new type of missile. Hurricane Group valued his talent in this field, so they invited him to participate in the research and development of the Deva I. Yun Tianyu did not agree immediately. However, Hurricane Group's friendliness was astonishing. Not only did they acquire Laji Holdings, they even transferred 60% of the company's shares to him. Furthermore, they even transferred 2 mercenary teams from Mercenary Paradise under his name, allowing him to command them. In the past 2 years, Yun Tianyu had become the true leader of Hurricane Group and was secretly working for Hurricane Group. A year ago, Hurricane Group divided the East Asian market into his hands. Previously, he was the one who breached the Pentagon's defense system. The reason was that the sea route from East Asia to North America was blocked by the US government, while this sea route was under his control. Perhaps, it was difficult to estimate the benefits involved. To put it bluntly, just the cargo ships departing from East Asia to North America alone received hundreds of millions of US dollars. Every order was enough to crush Laji Holdings' annual revenue. It was a very impressive figure. However, from a certain perspective, Yun Tianyu could not be considered a core member of Hurricane Group. Hurricane Group, on the other hand, had the intention of grooming Yun Tianyu as the next leader of Hurricane Group. Yun Shesher was kept in the dark about all this. If she were to know that Hurricane Group, which was rumored to be in control of world wars, wanted to kidnap her son, she would probably faint from shock. Hence, it was clear why Yun Tianyu did not care about those scheming tricks. Whoever offended him should not leave any traces behind if they were capable. If he were to find out who it was, he would eliminate the source of trouble without further ado. It was that simple and crude. Yun Tianyu held the phone and leaned back in his chair. His eyes were cold and piercing. Li Hanlin was about to speak when he heard Yun Tianyu's cold voice from the other end of the line. "All right. Since someone is restless, I don't mind playing with them. I've decided." Pausing for a moment, he said word by word in a young and deep voice. "I've decided to officially join the Hurricane Group. Arrange for tomorrow's flight. I want to go to Hurricane Group's headquarters." At night, while Mu Wanru was waiting for news in her study, her phone suddenly rang. She took a look and saw that it was an unfamiliar number. She could roughly guess who was calling. Mu Wanru took a deep breath and suddenly felt a little suffocated. Could it be that her actions had been detected by him? Mu Lianjue's voice rang from the other end of the line when she picked up the call. "Mu Wanru, I think you've got guts. How dare you send someone to assassinate Yun Tianyu? Do you know how big of a ruckus you've caused? Even the government officials are involved." Mu Wanru was shocked, but she heard him say coldly, "Fortunately, I have already suppressed the matter." "Didn't you promise me that you'll get rid of Yun Tianyu and Yun Shesher for me?" It's been so long, and you still haven't done anything. I'm running out of time. Chapter 11-12. Mu Wanru clenched her fists and tugged at her hair, looking extremely anxious. Mu Yaja is about to hold a media conference. Do you know what this means? It means that he's about to become the Mu family's head. When that day comes, I'll be completely finished. I think you don't trust me at all. His voice suddenly turned as cold as ice, revealing a thick and suffocating sense of danger. Mu Wanru pursed her lips tightly. In fact, how could she trust Mu Lianjue? She only had the feeling that she was being used. She heard his sinister voice close to her ear. I've already gotten rid of that assassin. Whether the operation succeeds or not, no one is to be left alive. If you dare to act rashly again, Mu Lianjue did not continue speaking though. Mu Wanru shuddered at his words. In other words, if she were to ruin his plan again, he would mercilessly kill her. In that case, if she obeyed his every command obediently, would he still silence her after he succeeded? Given his style of doing things, there was no guarantee. Mu Wanru only had fear of him. She did not trust him at all. Fourth uncle, when exactly are you going to get rid of those 2 thorns in my flesh? What's the hurry? That Yun Tianyu still has value. He snorted. Mu Wanru, do you know that Yun Tianyu isn't such a simple child? Don't belittle him. This child has some weight. What do you mean? I don't quite understand. Mu Wanru was baffled. You don't have to understand. I'm only telling you that if you hadn't ruined my plan, things wouldn't be so troublesome now. Yun Tianyu was assassinated, and now, a group of armed men of unknown origin have surrounded his house. It's very difficult for my men to get close. What? Armed men? Mu Wanru was shocked and found it hard to believe. It turned out that, after Yu Yu's return, Li Hanlin had sent a few armed men to guard the villa's perimeter in order to ensure the safety of his mother and son. Do not underestimate the armed men mentioned by Mu Lianjue. Mu Lianjue mistook them for militants, but they were, in fact, Mercenary Paradise's top mercenaries. There were 3 major mercenary organizations in the world: the Nipper Army and the IZO Mercenary Group, while Mercenary Paradise was the #1 international mercenary organization under the Hurricane Group. Mercenary Paradise had the world's top combat troops, and their fame spread far and wide, causing people to tremble with fear. Mercenaries were the cruelest war machines. No matter if it was the cold and rugged mountainous areas of Afghanistan, or the mosquito-infested and unbearably hot African rainforests, a strange group of people could be seen everywhere: mercenaries. Mercenaries is a synonym for mercenaries in English. An old Chinese saying, "Generous rewards will attract brave men," is a vivid description of such people. Mercenary Paradise was the world's largest mercenary organization. As a mercenary group that relied on war for a living, it gathered many desperados who valued money more than their lives. Mercenaries were a group of special professional killers. They were hired to carry out all kinds of assassinations, kidnappings, battles, and even coups. Chapter 11-13. Regardless of one's identity, Mercenary Paradise only required one to be a professional. There were all kinds of mercenaries in this place, but they all had one thing in common. They were crazy about war. War was their everything, and they would risk their lives for the sake of profit. To put it simply, as long as someone is willing to pay me, I'll work for them. There's only money in my eyes. There's no distinction between right and wrong, good and evil. I can work for God, but I can also work for Satan. Another adjective would be desperados. Mercenary Paradise had 4 ace leaders: Vermilion Bird, Anjia, Snow Fox, and O Shang. Snow Fox was good at assassination, Vermilion Bird was good at infiltration, and Anjia and O Shang were the kings of mercenaries with outstanding leadership skills. Those in this line of work did not have much loyalty to their country, nor did they have the concept of good and evil. They were professional soldiers who would be employed by and fight for any country or nation regardless of the country's interests and all the consequences. The only thing that was enough to move them was money and benefits. How could Mu Lianjue's men be compared to these war machines? With these ace mercenaries guarding the place, Mu Lianjue's men did not even have a chance to take a step forward. Now that things have come to this, we must bring Yun Tianyu back to the Mu family first before we have a chance to act, ordered Mu Lianjue. Given the current situation, only by bringing Yun Tianyu back to the Mu family would they have a chance to act. If Mu Shang were to take action, he could definitely bring Yun Tianyu back. Because with the power he currently held, if he wanted to, he could mobilize a group of troops from the military area at any time. Mu Wanru bit her lower lip and hung up the call. She sucked in a deep breath of cold air. A light was on in the study room. Mu Shang was sitting in front of his desk, looking at the financial report for the new quarter. His wrinkled hands flipped through the pages one by one. With his spectacles on, he skimmed through the report expressionlessly. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on the door cautiously. Who is it? He narrowed his eyes and looked up at the door. Grandpa, it's me, Wanru. Mu Wanru's gentle voice sounded from outside. Can I come in? I have something important to tell you. After pondering for a moment, he put the report aside and called out, Come in. As soon as he finished speaking, Mu Wanru pushed the door open and walked in. She carried a cup of tea to the desk and put it down. She looked down and said casually, Grandfather, I found the child's whereabouts. The old man, who had thought that it was something important, raised a brow at her question. Child. Yes. I've already found the child's whereabouts in the past few days. Should I bring him back to the Mu residence? She probed as she studied the old man's expression. Mu Shang slammed the table and stood up agitatedly. Where is it? Take me there quickly. Go now. Don't waste a moment. Bring the child back immediately. Now. It's getting late. Can your body take it? The muscles on his face twitched a little because of his excitement. He had a gratified expression on his face, but when he heard her question, he said disapprovingly, You don't need to care so much. Make the arrangements now and bring some men to bring the child back. Chapter 11:14. At this time, it was already late at night. Several black cars sped through Shangti Walk's entrance and stopped in front of the garden bungalow. Mu Shang sat in the car, leaning on his walking stick. His heart was in turmoil as he looked out of the window. 7 years ago, when Xiao Yichen was born, he was ecstatic. As the head of the Mu family, it was gratifying to see the continuation of the bloodline. Now, however, he learned that that woman had given birth to 2 children for the Mu family, and had secretly hidden one of them. Mu Shang was livid. What was that woman's motive? She actually hid a child. Could it be that, as Mu Wanru had said, she wanted to become a phoenix by relying on her child's status? He really doesn't know what kind of status he has. Thinking of this, he could not calm down. However, when he learned that the child was about to be returned to the family, his expression softened a little. He looked at the 2 bodyguards in black and gave them a signal with his eyes. Then he said in a low voice, Be careful, don't hurt the child. The bodyguards in suits alighted from the car. Just as they were about to reach the door, they heard a cold shout from the darkness. Who is it? Before they could recover from their shock, they saw several armed mercenaries appear out of nowhere and guard the door, not allowing them to get close. The bodyguards were stunned at first and then bellowed, Who are you? The mercenaries did not speak and only sized them up coldly. Get out of the way. The mercenaries stood still and did not move an inch. The bodyguards looked at each other and decided to barge in. Just as they lifted their feet, a black shadow suddenly flashed in front of them, rushed into the crowd, and pulled out a sharp dagger from his waist. Only a few painful cries could be heard, and in just a few seconds, they fell to the ground one after another. The tendons in their arms and legs were cut. The black figure paused and slowly straightened up. He sheathed the dagger and a cold face was exposed under the moonlight. His eyes were bloodshot and murderous. Even Mu Shang, who was sitting in the car, could feel a biting chill in his heart. It was biting cold. This person's skills were outstanding, and his moves were fast, accurate, and ruthless. In just 5 seconds, he actually broke the tendons of the bodyguards he sent out. His fighting strength was enough to strike fear into the hearts of others. Who are these people? The old man had never seen such terrifying combat power. In the entire military region, only the special forces had such a terrifying combat level. What was going on? Grandpa, what should we do now? Mu Wanru asked in trepidation. It turned out that it was just as Mu Lianjue had said. A group of unknown armed forces had surrounded Yun Shishi's house, preventing anyone from getting close. Mu Wanru suddenly felt a chill in her heart. Mu Shang, on the other hand, was baffled. What were the identities of these people with such powerful skills? Mu Wanru suddenly said, Are these people sent by Yejia to protect Yun Shirshir and her son? Humph. This brat was always doing stupid things. I think his wings have hardened. He's actually bewitched by a dirty woman. Mu Sheng banged his cane on the floor in anger. Anger rose from his heart. Grandpa, what should we do now? I think these people are very skilled. They're not simple. He snorted. Now hurry. Chapter 11:15. The Mu family's business was huge, and its influence spread far and wide. There were many Mus in the military base. In the military base, those who held the rank of SHOU commander or higher were all members of the Mu family. Not to mention, Mu Yaja's second uncle, Mu Linfeng, was the highest-ranking commander of the military base in the capital. The Mus were inextricably linked to the military base. Hence, with just a call from Mu Shang, in less than an hour, 8 to 9 armored anti-riot vehicles were parked at the entrance of Shangti Walk. Once there was a special operation in the military base, even the police would have to open the way for these bigwigs. In this country, the hidden hierarchy system was still very clear. Hence, the reason why the Mus had been standing tall for so many years was because they had the absolute right to speak in the field of supreme power. Closely following behind the anti-riot vehicles was the military base's military officer, Senior Colonel Song Yi. Although he was not a member of the Mus, he was the nephew of the capital's mayor, Song Zhenghua. His wife was from a side branch of the Mus, Mu Yaja's niece, Mu Kuei. Once he heard Grandpa Mu's instructions, Song Yi gave him face and mobilized all the soldiers from the special forces. Each of them was strong and fit, and they were the country's top war machines. 8 armed explosion-proof vehicles, carrying more than 30 regular army troops, majestically surrounded the entrance of the huge villa garden so that not even a drop of water could trickle through. These 30 soldiers were not to be underestimated. One must know that the special forces were the country's official military base. They were the vanguard of the military base and were responsible for special missions. Hence, each soldier was very strong. If one had to compare the special forces with the mercenaries, it would be difficult to see who was better. These 30-plus soldiers were equivalent to a company of soldiers. Hence, when Song Yi arrived with the 30 soldiers, the situation was completely under their control. Yun Tianyu stood in front of the window and looked at the black mass of special forces outside. His face turned ghastly pale. He didn't know what the purpose of these people was, nor did he know who these special forces soldiers were under whose orders, or who sent them here. However, he knew very well that the odds were against him tonight. Yun Shirshir, who was holding Yu Yu, was also stunned by the scene outside the window. She didn't know who had sent the special forces outside the door, but the situation in front of her was so shocking that she was stunned and couldn't come back to her senses for a while. Mu Sheng sat in the car. Since his legs were inconvenient, he did not alight. Thus, Mu Wanru and Song Yi led their men and broke into the house. The sound of them breaking into the house alerted Yun Shirshir. Alas, what kind of combat skills did the special forces have? They surrounded the huge villa tightly. Even if she had wings, she could forget about escaping. The special forces broke in first and surrounded Yun Shirshir and Yu Yu in the middle. Mu Wanru and Song Yi walked in and scanned the house. They saw Yun Shirshir, who was holding Yu Yu tightly in her arms. At first, Yun Shirshir tried to resist when she saw the soldiers barging in. How could she resist these valiant state machines, though? They subdued her with one move. Chapter 11:16. Mu Wanru scanned her surroundings and her venomous gaze landed on Yun Shirshir. At this moment, she looked so down and out. Her hair was messy and her eyes were red. She bit her lips tightly as she stared at Mu Wanru, her face full of vigilance. Mu Wanru grinned and glanced at Yu Yu, who was in Mu Wanru's arms. Then, her smile became even more sinister and smug. Ha! Yun Shirshir, look at yourself. You look so pathetic now. Mu Wanru. Yun Shirshir was stunned at first. Then, there was a bone-chilling hatred in her eyes. Could it be that she had sent those soldiers from the military district? What was she trying to do? After Yun Shirshir's anger subsided, a trace of fear appeared in her heart. Mu Wanru had brought so many people to the house. She must be up to no good. However, Yun Shirshir could not figure out her motive. Hence, she took a few steps back cautiously and shielded Yu Yu in her arms. She was so nervous that she could not breathe properly. You must be wondering why I'm here today, right? Mu Wanru smiled coldly. Then, Her icy gaze landed on Yu Yu, who was in her arms. I'm here today on Grandpa's orders to bring back the Mu bloodline. As she spoke, she smiled sinisterly and slowly took a few steps towards Yun Shirshir. Yun Shirshir, when you signed a contract with the Mu family, it was clearly written that as the contractor, you could not cause any trouble for the child's custody. But what about you? You've been hiding Zhe's son for so many years. Today, it's time for the child to return to the Mu family. Yun Shirshir bit her lip hard and hugged Yu Yu even tighter. Her eyes were fixed on Mu Wanru's every move and she was on guard. You can't take him away. Yun Shirshir said in a low voice, he's my son. You can't take him away. It was not that she did not want Yu Yu to return to the Mu family. Instead, she was worried that if Yu Yu returned to the Mu family, Mu Wanru would have bad intentions. She felt uneasy. Hee. You don't want to? Mu Wanru laughed sinisterly and walked in front of her. She grabbed her arm and revealed her snow-white teeth. Yun Shirshir, I think you're really despicable. Back then, you were the one who signed the contract, and you were the one who confirmed the terms on it. There were no objections. Now that you're not willing to hand over the child, I can't help but suspect that you have ulterior motives. Don't tell me. She was delusional in thinking that she could rely on her son to rise in status and become a phoenix, right? I think you're really ambitious. Shut up. Do you think I'm like you? Yun Shirshir retorted coldly. You're the one who's ambitious, aren't you? Mu Wanru's gaze turned sharp. You, shut up. Yu Yu is my son. I have custody of him. I'll never hand him over to you, not even if I die. Yun Shirshir shielded Yu Yu behind her. She stuck out her chest and faced Mu Wanru directly. Mu Wanru also glared at her fiercely. Their gazes collided fiercely in the air and sparks flew everywhere. B*tise. Mu Wanru suddenly scolded her fiercely. What? Do you think I want to bring the child back? Haha. This is Grandpa's order. You're not allowed to say anything tonight. Bring the child out. No. Yun Shirshir took a step back and Mu Wanru took a step forward. Chapter 11:17. B*tch. Get the child out. With that, Mu Wanru reached out her hand toward Yu Yu. Yu Yu glared at her coldly and hid behind Yun Shirshir. Yun Shirshir said angrily, Mu Wanru, why should I hand my child over to you? Don't go near Yu Yu. Keep your dirty hands away from him. What a wretch. You B*tch. Your child will also be a wretch. You're shameless to acknowledge a thief as your mother. Yun Shirshir's gaze turned frosty as she raised her hand to slap the other's face. Smack. The sound was crisp and clear. Mu Wanru was caught off guard. She was slapped so hard that her entire face was turned to one side. Mu Wanru turned around in a daze and looked at her in disbelief. You slapped me? Yun Shirshir bit her lower lip hard, but her face was full of hatred. She hated Mu Wanru from the bottom of her heart. She had taken away so many things from her, and now, even Yu Yu was going to be taken away from her. Unforgivable. You're the shameless B*tch, aren't you? Yun Shirshir could not calm herself down. She suddenly said coldly, if Yu Yu returns to the Mu family, then he'll really acknowledge a thief as his mother. Her words were vague. The bystanders were baffled by his words, but Mu Wanru could read between the lines. His words seemed to have accurately hit her where she felt the most guilty. She bellowed, Shut up. You're hiding the Mu family's child, yet you still dare to flaunt your prowess in front of me. B****. Crazy woman, you're not allowed to scold my mommy. You're the B****. Yun Tianyu was livid. He opened his arms wide and stood in front of Yun Shirshir. His eyes were full of hatred and anger. His heart was filled with anger and hatred. He suddenly understood who the mastermind behind this school shooting incident was. He could see that Mu Wanru was bent on getting rid of him and his mommy. From the day he and Xiao Yichen were assassinated that day, Mu Wanru's ambition could be seen. To this woman, he and mommy must be a thorn in her side. Not only that, when the time came, this woman would not let Mu Yichen off, either. Now, he could not help but regret it. He had plenty of ways to get rid of Mu Wanru, yet he did not do it. Which resulted in his mommy being in such a predicament. If he had acted earlier and gotten rid of Mu Wanru, today's incident would not have happened. Mu Wanru lowered her head and glanced at him coldly. She did not know what he was thinking at this moment. Yu Yu's gaze on her was cold and chilling. She cursed. B*T, who are you? What right do you have to talk to me? Hee. The one who has no right to talk to me is you. Yun Tianyu lifted his face and expressionlessly said in a hushed voice. Imposter. Yun Shirshir, who was standing behind him, did not hear his words clearly. Mu Wanru, however, heard it clearly. This child had the guts to call her an imposter. Mu Wanru flew into a rage out of humiliation. She raised her hand and was about to slap Yun Tianyu's face in the next second. Yun Shirshir reached out abruptly and held her hand tightly. Let go. Mu Wanru struggled with all her might. At the side, a soldier immediately stepped forward and restrained Yun Shirshir. Chapter 11:18. Mu Wanru reached out to pull him away. Yun Tianyu turned his head, grabbed her wrist, and bit it with a whimper. He bit down viciously. He really bit down viciously. Channeling all his anger and humiliation into his strength, he bit down as if he wanted to break her wrist. Mu Wanru struggled to shake her hand off. Letting out a shrill scream, she hurriedly tried to break free from his grip. However, Yu Yu refused to let go of her wrist. With bloodshot eyes, he bit down harder until the tip of his teeth pierced through her flesh and he tasted blood. He had actually bitten open Mu Wanru's wrist. Ah! Mu Wanru screamed even more wretchedly and almost jumped up. Yun Shirshir was angry and anxious. Seeing that the soldiers were about to step forward, she rushed forward to carry Yu Yu back. Yu Yu still refused to let go. Yu Yu, be good. Don't bite any more. Her hand is dirty. Let go. Be good. With Yun Shirshir's words, Yu Yu obediently let go. He turned his face away and spat out a mouthful of blood. Raising his hand, he wiped the blood from the corner of his lips with his fingertips. Lowering his eyebrows, he could not help feeling nauseous. Hence, he took out a wet wipe and wiped the blood from the corner of his lips. When he looked again, he saw that Mu Wanru's wrist was bleeding profusely. She raised her hand and looked at the wound. The bite was so deep that the flesh had split open. Mu Wanru could not help cursing. What a sharp-tongued little thing! How uncultured! As she spoke, she gave the order. Men, take this child away. Just as Mu Wanru finished speaking, a few Special Forces soldiers behind her took action. 3 Special Forces soldiers walked up to Yun Shirshir. One of them held her down with one hand while the other carried the boy in his arms. Yun Tianyu did not even have time to struggle before he was caught in her arms. Earlier, Mu Sheng had repeatedly emphasized that the children were not to be hurt. Hence, even though these people were a little rough with Yun Shirshir, they were very gentle with Yu Yu. Even though Yu Yu struggled in their arms, kicking and hitting him, they were, after all, trained in the Special Forces. No matter how much trouble he made, they did not move an inch. Yun Shirshir was furious. She struggled to go forward and snatch Yu Yu back. Mu Wanru took the lead and strode forward. She pushed Yun Shirshir to the ground and gave her a tight slap. Yun Shirshir's hands were restrained by the soldiers and she couldn't struggle at all. She was slapped by Mu Wanru. Mommy! Yu Yu's heart skipped a beat when he saw this scene. He screamed at the top of his lungs as tears rolled down his cheeks uncontrollably. He then shouted angrily, Don't bully my mommy! Don't bully my mommy! If not, I won't let you off. I won't let you off. Yu Yu struggled with all his might, but he was so weak. He was only a 7-year-old child. How much strength could he have? He was not like Xiao Yichen, who had received special training from a young age. He was so weak that no matter how he struggled, he was unable to withstand a single blow from the Special Forces soldiers. Mu Wanru cast a sidelong glance at Yu Yu and snorted. You're overestimating yourself. You're still trying to struggle at this point. Mu Wanru was pleased with herself. She grabbed Yun Shirshir's neck with such force that Yun Shirshir felt suffocated. All the blood in her body rushed to the top of her head, and her face turned red. Chapter 11:19. Mu Wanru pinched Yun Shirshir so hard that, in just a few seconds, she felt her consciousness fading away as if she were on the verge of suffocating. Immediately after, she heard Yu Yu's desperate scream. Don't! Let go of my mommy! Let go! Let go of her! You're not allowed to touch my mommy. If anything happens to my mommy, I'll make sure all of you are buried with her. Yun Tianyu tried to break free several times, but just as he landed on the ground, he was pulled back with one hand. He was too weak. There was no way he could compete with the well-trained soldiers. Mu Wanru was determined to kill Yun Shirshir, so she did not hesitate to use her strength. Suddenly, a shout came from the door. "Stop!" Startled, Mu Wanru subconsciously let go of her hand. Yun Shirshir collapsed to the ground and coughed violently as she clutched her throat, which was about to be broken. Yun Tianyu gritted his teeth and clenched his fists tightly. His whole body trembled uncontrollably. He was in a state of extreme fear and hatred. Fear. He was worried that Mu Wanru would be ruthless and hurt his mommy. He hated that he was so weak that he could not protect his mommy. Anger. He hated Mu Wanru's ruthless methods. At this moment, his heart seemed to be swallowed by a layer of boundless darkness. A bloody thought suddenly popped up in his mind. If he had the chance, he would definitely tear Mu Wanru into pieces. Even he was taken aback by this sudden thought. However, at this moment, hatred had taken over his heart. Mu Shang, who was standing at the door, saw this scene the moment he entered. He could not help but stop her. "Wanru, don't blow this matter up. I'm here to take the child away." "Grandpa." Mu Wanru felt inexplicably uneasy when she saw him. What made her uneasy was that she could not let him see Yun Shirshir's face. Otherwise, if he recognized Yun Shirshir's face, which was very similar to Mu Qingqing's, he would be suspicious. Hence, she hurried forward to support him, but purposely used her body to block Yun Shirshir's view. "Grandpa, why are you here? You're not in good health. It's better for you to sit in the car," he said in a low voice. "I'm worried, so I came to see the child." "Where's the child?" Mu Wanru's face froze for a moment. She then gave a look as if ordering the soldiers to bring the child forward. However, she did not realize that the reason why she could command these soldiers previously was because of Mu's. Now that Mu Shang was present, these soldiers would naturally listen to his orders. There was no need for them to obey whatever she said. Mu Wanru could not help but fly into a rage out of humiliation when her order was ignored. The old man ordered, "Bring the child over and let me take a look." The soldier then carried the child to the old man. Yun Tianyu's gaze was still fixed on Yun Shirshir's direction. When he saw her hugging her throat and crawling on the ground in pain with a red face and a pained expression, he felt as if a knife was being twisted in his heart. His gaze landed on Yu Yu, and a trace of relief appeared on his aged face. He could not help but reach out his wrinkled hand to caress every inch of the boy's facial features before stopping at his eyebrows. Similar, they were really alike. His eyebrows and eyes were very similar to Xiao Yichen's, but his nose and mouth were more like his father's. At first glance, the two children looked exactly the same. Chapter 11:20. For example, Yu Yu's eyes were bigger and narrower than Xiao Yichen's. When he grew up, there was no doubt that he would be a standard good-looking boy. Yu Yu turned around abruptly and shot him a cold look. He then raised his hand and slapped his hand away harshly. "Pa!" A sound was heard. He used a lot of force. The back of Mu Shang's hand was stinging from the slap. "Don't touch me!" Yu Yu bellowed angrily, but his tone did not have the tenderness and timidity of a 7-year-old child. If he were a child of the same age, he would definitely be scared out of his wits in the face of such a large-scale confrontation. This child, however, was more courageous than others. His tone was very much like Mu Yaja's when he was young, wild and unruly. Mu Wanru glared at him. "He's your great-grandfather. Don't be rude." Yun Tianyu did not look at her though. Mu Wanru was even more enraged. This child's arrogance really made her angry and resentful. Mu Shang was not angry. Instead he laughed. "Hee hee. This child is more courageous than others. He's quite like his father. Not bad." Mu Wanru could not help saying, "Grandpa, don't spoil him. This child is too arrogant. We must teach him well when we get back. If not, people will think that the Mu family is lacking in education and that this child is so ill-mannered." Mu Shang disapproved of this and looked at her reproachfully. "Wanru, don't say that. I think this child is quite good. He's not like other children who are timid. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. He's quite courageous." Mu Wanru opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but hesitated. "What's your name?" Mu Shang was naturally elated to see the child. He could not help but ask with a smile, teasing him just like how he teased Xiao Yichen. Yu Yu ignored him though. He could not help laughing. This child has some character. Put me down, Yu said coldly. Mu Wanru was about to stop them when Mu Sheng ordered, "Put him down. Don't hurt the child." Hence, the man put Yu down. Yu struggled free from the man's grip and ran towards Yun Shirshir like a madwoman. Yun Shirshir had just caught her breath when Yu threw herself into her arms, trembling. "Mommy, mommy, mommy." The scene just now had made him tremble with fear. For a moment, he even thought that he was going to lose her. Seeing that she was safe and sound, Yu still had some lingering fear and hugged Yun Shirshir tightly. "Mommy." The helpless and heart-wrenching cries over and over again brought back some of her consciousness. Yun Shirshir subconsciously hugged him tightly. Seeing this, Mu Sheng frowned with displeasure and walked toward Yun Shirshir. Mu Wanru stopped him immediately. "Grandpa, don't go over. I'm afraid that she'll hurt you." "Wanru." "Grandpa, I'll go get the child back." With that, Mu Wanru walked toward Yun Shirshir. "Yun Shirshir, I'm warning you for the last time. Don't refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Call the child out right now, and I'll let bygones be bygones for violating the contract. If you don't listen, don't blame me for being merciless." Yun Shirshir's throat was in so much pain that she could not make a sound. She could only hug Yu tighter. She lifted her eyes with difficulty, only to see Mu Shang standing at the door. Her heart skipped a beat. Mu Shang. She had seen him in a financial magazine before. Chapter 11:21. She heard that he was the head of the Mu family with the highest authority. That's right. The executioner her mother spoke of. Yun Shirshir's heart wavered all of a sudden. She had always regarded the Mu family as a tiger's den. Hence, even after knowing the truth of her identity, she had never once thought of returning to the Mu family. Now, however, she wanted to acknowledge him. Acknowledge him. She had made up her mind to expose Mu Wanru's identity today. Otherwise, there would be no more chances. This way, she would be able to protect herself and Yu. As she thought of this, she gritted her teeth. Carrying Yu in her arms, she struggled to support her body and walked toward Mu Shang. Mu Wanru's expression changed when she saw this. She was very sensitive and not stupid. When she saw Yun Shirshir walking toward Mu Shang, she guessed at once that the latter wanted to reunite with him. No, she must not let her have her way. Mu Wanru rushed over, grabbed her clothes, and pushed her away. "You're not allowed to come near." Yun Shirshir ignored her. Her eyes were fixed on Mu Shang from beginning to end. A hoarse and broken voice escaped from her throat. "Grandpa. Grandpa." She wanted to acknowledge him. She had decided to acknowledge him back to the Mu family. She did not want any identity. She only wanted to expose Mu Wanru. She wanted this impostor to disappear from her sight completely. At least, she would not hurt her again and again. Mu Wanru had pinched her too hard earlier, so her voice was broken and hoarse now. Mu Shang squinted his eyes. He could not quite hear what she was saying. This woman's hair was messy and her clothes were tattered. Disgust flashed across his eyes. In his heart, Yun Shirshir left him the impression of a shrewd and scheming woman. In addition, Mu Wanru kept whispering in his ear to fan the flames. His impression of Yun Shirshir could not be worse. Hence, even if he could not hear clearly, he did not intend to step forward to understand the situation. Even taking a look at it would dirty his eyes. Mu Wanru was furious. She pushed Yun Shirshir to the ground. Yun Shirshir lost her balance and fell to the ground. However, in order to protect Yu, her elbow hit the ground hard. Yu's heart ached terribly. He bit his lower lip hard as bean-sized teardrops dripped onto his mother's face. They were warm and scolding. "Mommy. Shameless be *t6. Do you really think that just because you gave birth to 2 children for the Mu family, you can fly to the branch and become a phoenix? Why don't you take a look at your lowly identity? Dream on." Mu Wanru then separated Yun Tianyu and Yun Shirshir in order to deceive others. She grabbed Yun Shirshir and gave her a beating. Yun Shirshir was not one to give in though. She sprang up and pounced on Mu Wanru. Both of them wrestled with each other. Mu Wanru kept pulling her hair, but Yun Shirshir was not careless. She threw a punch at her and hit her chin. Mu Wanru fell to the ground in pain. Yun Shirshir threw another punch at her. He was so furious that his strength was so great that Mu Wanru lost her ability to fight back. B** starred. Seeing that Mu Wanru was being bullied, Mu Sheng could not take it anymore. He rushed forward and, almost losing all his rationality, raised the cane in his hand high at Yun Shirshir. A chilling aura broke through the wind and arrived. Yun Shirshir caught a glimpse of it from the corner of her eye. Her heart skipped a beat. She nervously held her breath and closed her eyes. Chapter 11:22. Yun Shirshir opened her eyes in a daze. She could not help but widen her watery eyes as she held her breath in shock. Yun Tianyu had unknowingly pounced in front of her, his arms supporting her body as he stood still. You! Yun Shirshir shrieked in shock. Mu Sheng was also shocked. He hurriedly threw away his cane and carried Yu in his arms. His small face turned deathly pale, without a trace of blood. Large beads of cold sweat continuously seeped out from his forehead. He closed his eyes and actually fainted from the pain. Yu! Yun Shirshir tried to snatch the child from his arms to check on his injuries. He pushed her away though. Dirty woman, don't touch him. You don't have the right to touch him. Yun Shirshir widened her eyes in shock. She still wanted to go forward without regard for her safety, but she was stopped by a soldier at the side. Let's go. Worried about Yu's injuries, the old man hurriedly left with his men. Yun Shirshir struggled behind him, but she could not resist at all. She could only watch helplessly as Yu was taken away. Separation of flesh and blood. This was the most painful thing in the world. Thinking of how Yu had shielded her from such a heavy blow, Yun Shirshir's heart felt like it was being stabbed by a knife. She broke down and grabbed her hair, wanting to chase after him like a madwoman. Mu Wanru got up from the ground and brushed the dust off her body. She cast a sidelong glance at Yun Shirshir and coldly ordered, "Put this woman under house arrest." June Mo was about to have a cup of coffee and look at the script of the new program when she suddenly heard a strange movement outside the window. She walked to the window with a cup of coffee and pulled the curtains wide open. She saw several military vehicles parked outside the door. She was startled. The vehicles were parked outside Yun Shirshir's house. She could not help becoming more vigilant. She walked to the balcony and looked over. However, he happened to see a soldier carrying Yun Shirshir over his shoulder and stuffing her into the car. Yun Shirshir seemed to have been struck unconscious by a palm strike. June Mo's heart skipped a beat, and in her shock, the coffee cup in her hand fell to the ground and broke into pieces. The sudden movement quickly attracted the attention of the soldiers with sharp ears. The man turned around abruptly and looked sharply in June Mo's direction. But on the huge balcony, the curtains were fluttering. He was afraid that the wind was too strong and the flower pot would fall and break, so he didn't think too much about it. He got into the car and drove off. June Mo hid behind the wall, but she couldn't calm down. She glanced out of the corner of her eye. After the car had driven far away, she rushed out of the house and walked to Yun Shirshir's house. He saw that the gate to the courtyard was wide open. She walked in. In the living room, the lights were still on, but the floor was a mess. The broken vase, the red carved wooden cane thrown to the side, and a few drops of glaring blood. She was shocked. What happened? Was it a kidnapping? Impossible. June Mo recognized at a glance that those military vehicles had June Qiu license plates. This wasn't a kidnapping. Then what exactly was going on? June Mo didn't have time to think and called Qin Zhou first. As soon as the call connected, June Mo told Qin Zhou what had happened. She had no idea what exactly had happened, but it was an undeniable fact that she had seen June Qiu's car take Yun Shirshir away. Qin Zhou rushed over quickly and was shocked to see Yun Shirshir's house in a mess. What happened? He asked nervously.